And now you have tiny hands knocking on there being like, Daddy, can we play Minecraft when you get out? And it's like, no, I have to go mow the lawn. Son of a...
I have this probably not well-received hobby, which is that I love talking on the toilet. Anytime that my partner's on the toilet, or if I'm on the toilet, I leave the door open, I get chatty.
Oh, you're
That's right. That's when I'm most social, is when I'm about to drop one. I think it's watering hole hold off, you know what I mean? There's a cultural, there's something there.
I have to viciously disagree with you at the risk of being TMI, but like, there is nothing worse than having a conversation with somebody while you're trying to squeeze it out. That is fucking bananas.
It's insane.
That is.
Yeah.
Erudite's enjoying it.
Maybe if you didn't shit like a monkey, it wouldn't be bananas. Erudite can't hear you, by the way.
No, I think she was just enjoying. I think she was enjoying our poop banter.
Oh, of course.
And then she can't hear us.
That's one thing. Yes.
Yeah,
I don't believe her. She made a face like she could definitely hear us a second ago.
Maybe for but a moment. I think I might have made her mute. I might have made her mute.
She might have checked out when we were talking about talking to people on the can.
That's one thing I had to reconcile with my fiance, was she growing up was one of the door open, no holds barred, here I am person, and I was never that. I was always like, I need the door closed and I need the fan on and I need you to maybe walk away, as if possible.
It
I'm a
depends how much
shitter,
pain
leave
I'm
me
in.
alone.
If I have like pain in my abdomen.
The emotional domain belongs to women. They have wisdom there that the men need, so they reach out. And that men, they're not emotionally sophisticated. Perhaps they are planning sophisticated, where it's like, hey, I'm having this technical problem. I'm having a problem with Photoshop. Could you please tell me how to do Photoshop or something? With the sort of Barbie movie, like, we tend to understand our value in utility, not our value in personal takes. Ethics and philosophy are one of the few things that where a man can talk about his emotions through that filter. It's probably the main reason that it happens so much. It's like it's gender compliant emotional expression.
Okay, but here's the thing. I just want to say, like, I really quick.
I got like a 5-minute rant, but I'll listen to you.
I just have 2 seconds. I think that, like, if you're a guy and you want to have that, if you just expose men to that, like it doesn't take long for them to learn it. They just don't know how. It just takes like a couple car rides and then they're like, they know how to do it.
Nah, okay, so sorry. I don't disagree with any of what y'all are saying. If the summary is like, men don't typically express themselves to each other, if you open up with just like a random emotional experience or how you're feeling about stuff, then you might get somebody who clams up and thinks it's weird that you even try to share it with them. That might off-put you from sharing anything with that person in the future. That person might clam up even more and want to share less in the future, all that kind of stuff. But I'm reminded of the quote. It's like, as iron sharpens iron, men sharpen men. And that's the thing, is like, I don't even know what intimacy you're talking about, Erudite, for your husband. That, like, does he want somebody to like hold shoulders with and cry, or does he want to do the stereotypical bro shit? Because the stereotypical bro shit, I do have that with a half dozen people, and I only talk to them once every 6 months. And in the interim, we're basically sending each other racist, sexist, and homophobic memes.
He thinks men suck
that
because men suck at knowing how to have joy and how to delight in just having joy around each other, which is what female friendships often have a lot of, and that's why he feels really lonely. And he thinks men are very shallow about that.
Connor just gave an example of how men are really comfortable experiencing joy by sharing racist, homophobic, and sexist memes.
I don't know if that's joy.
No, that is joy. No, that is joy. This is something. This is something women will shut down when I do.
Just to be clear. Hold on. I'm talking about eudemonia. I understand what you're saying. I'm saying I don't know if I'm buying that that's eudemonia, because what I'm talking about is eudemonia.
Hold on.
When I say joy, that's what I mean.
Is it because is eudemonia like the maximum human well-being or something? What is it again?
I'll look up a definition for you.
Synthesis of ethics. It's where you do something that you think is both good and good for you. Good for out.
Yeah, well-being, happiness, and flourishing.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So the reason why I think men often discount each other's opinions is because you have to be a person worthy of respecting their opinion. So if you work in a peer field, is that person competent at that job? Does that person have good relationships with their friends and family? Do they have good relationships with their, if they have kids or if they have a wife or whatever the fuck? And by the way, I have distanced myself from men that I was very friendly with at work because they were competent people, but I gently drifted away from them because I basically found that they were lying, cheating, drug addicted scumbags in their private lives. So even though they were competent people in public, they were disloyal pieces of shit in private, and as a result I kind of drifted away from them. So I think part of the reason why male relationships are so difficult is because you have to find the people that sharpen you. And if this goes back to competitive versus collaborative. If you collaborate with somebody who's a piece of shit, who's a liar, who manipulates everybody in their lives, who does drugs and all that kind of stuff, that person is going to drag you down and they're going to fuck you over. Whereas if you find somebody who's competent, intelligent, respectful, has their shit together, trying to take care of their family, trying to take care of their, wife and kids and all that kind of shit, that's the kind of person that's going to bring you up with them. And nobody's perfect. But at the same time, like, you were saying that you can't complain to other men or whatever because of the cold things that you get. I exclusively have relationships with like 2 or 3 people who are military service members or law enforcement members who have done a whole bunch of fucked up shit, including killing other human beings. And what we do is we check in with each other every 3 to 6 months. And we're like, hey, bro, here's all the fucked up shit that's going on in my life. Here's how I'm feeling about it. I wish I could kill this guy. I wish I could kill myself. I wish I could do this. I wish I could throw a fucking brick through a wall. I wish I could Molotov cocktail this building. I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And then as a result, because it's somebody we respect, we vent to each other. We get our frustrations out of our system. We feel like somebody we respect listened to us. Maybe they give us feedback, and sometimes their feedback is good and sometimes their feedback is bad. And then to be honest, when they give us feedback, we are not expecting the other person to comply with our feedback or the relationship ends. Because we respect each other, we expect them to take our opinion with a grain of salt and maybe to implement it and maybe not to implement it. But that is something that comes from a relatively healthy relationship born out of like mutual suffering and respect, and finding those relationships is very rare.
Okay.
Well, like
if
it's
Tuna
not,
and then Smith, we'll come to you after.
Connor, I think the thing that you have there that makes that good, and the thing that Erudite has talked about that has made hers good, what's making all of these good social dynamics that are like fulfilling with friendships, is that the nature of the dynamic itself builds respect as opposed to disrespect. So like when I think about the respect respect angle, the dynamic that I pointed out, also we'll clarify if you didn't already get it, I'm not saying that's the entirety of female social relationships or that all of them are contingent on it. It's a pattern that happens. It's a
stereotypically common
social game. It's a pastime. TA talks about this
like
idea,
toxic femininity. Yeah, those are toxic.
TA talks about these various games. You can look up anybody who wants a really fun pop psychology read. Games people play points out a lot of these dishonest games where people are actually exploiting one another's time, attention. It's all about lying to somebody else, and some people are in on the lie and some are not. And usually there's something about like some people that are stupid are not in on the lie and some people that are smart. And it is kind of weird that we create like these weird little dynamics where the stupid people are not in on it. They're being taken advantage of. And it makes me lose respect. So I think that's probably the core thing. What's a dynamic with friends that builds respect?
I can agree. Just so you guys know, I fixed my internet. It was my VPN. I fixed it. Anyway.
It looks better now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I think that if it's not the case that you will, so like let's say you tell me about all the shit that's happening and like you want to kill and shit, and if I give you advice or something and you don't take it and I'm offended, then you telling me like you only want to tell me because you want me to make room for your, like, you want to offload this shit. You don't actually want me to tell you what to do. You just want to know that someone knows.
No, that's beautifully. Sorry, 10 seconds. Yeah, half the time, I don't need somebody to tell me how to live my life. I need to tell them the fucked up shit that is going on with me. Of course, I express to my wife and I express to my kids, but they are different people with different problems. And so as a result, it's not the same as telling somebody who is in a parallel situation. Because the parallel situation person, even if you're not looking for their advice, they can be like, Yeah, I went through something similarly fucked up and it fucking sucks. I'm sorry, bro. And even getting that out of your fucking chest and into the ether can be a psychological relief.
Connection. You're connected now. You're like, you're not alone.
It's okay. So I asked Nick, basically, because this is coming from him. The reason why, because I would never tell men whether they're friendships. I can't really experience a male-to-male friendship, right? This is mostly stuff that I've heard from Nick. So I just asked him right now, why do you feel dissatisfied? Like, why do you feel like there's a difference in male to female friendships? Because I feel like I see a difference, but maybe it's my female gaze. And he said, so this is Nick's words. He said, imagine there's like 10 boxes that you need to check for like a real, pure, Aristotelian, perfect type friendship, right? It's sublime. It's the eudaimonic friendship. He said, in his experiences with men, he's got lots of good male friends, most men check like 1, 2, sometimes 3 to 4, and they check them really hard. Like they check them harder than anybody else. So if it's like the humor and kind of like the fun stuff, they're like the funnest motherfucker that you've ever been around, right? He said most men check 2, some check 3 to 4, and there's an occasional guy that you meet that's really cool who checks like 5 to 6 of the boxes. And he said these boxes would be like the obvious things like shared enjoyment, support, respect, appreciation, openness, vulnerability, stoicism, positivity, blah, 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 blah. He said the difference for him is that when he watches female friendships, lots of women for each other fulfill like 7, 8, 9 pretty consistently. It's not actually that hard to find a woman who will fulfill 7, 8 to 9. Probably the main issue that maybe it's to Tuna's point is that it can be hard to find a woman who will fulfill those 7 to 8 to 9 long-term over years. Because I think the female friendships are fractured sometimes a little bit more easily, but we build them better. And so like a really good friendship isn't built on having one of these boxes checked really hard, even though that's valuable, which is what men tend to have. What it is about is like having 7 to 8 to 9 of them checked and then maintaining a consistency of that relationship. So that's why
to make it
deeply dissatisfied with his male friendships.
Okay, so I need to. Yeah, so I need to make this point. This is why you need to allow your friends to be flawed and fucked up, and this is what I think Christian morality does. I'm okay. Well, I'm going to say what I'm going to say anyways, and then you can
I'm going to pause you. Actually, can we do an engagement back and forth? Why would you respond to my statement like that?
Because it seems like your husband is expecting men to check 10 out of 10 boxes instead of them checking 3 and then being flawed in the other 7.
So you're assuming that if they're not checking all 10, that if they're checking all 10, that means that there's no flaws to the person. Listing 10 positive traits of a friendship doesn't imply that there aren't also flaws to an individual. In fact, I would say a really good friendship, one of the boxes would be being able to reconcile and like be okay with flaws of other people. I think that's a fundamental element of a sublime friendship.
So maybe the check boxes are small.
I don't think you would agree with me. Well,
hold on.
Would you?
I want to.
Okay.
I want to make a. No, I mean you can hit me back with a response in a second. So what I would say is the men that I have in my life that I deeply value, I would say there's 7 out of 10 check boxes. There's probably 3 that they fail abhorrently at. And they're consistent and respectful, truthful, honorable, all that kind of shit. And then there's also a couple of things that they're really fucked up on. And then there's also people that I've been friends with for a long time who they only check 2 or 3 boxes, but through hobbling together a social group that only like meet certain boxes or whatever, it's like we can almost become one ideal man by cobbling together 6 or 7 guys who all have 3 or 4 different things. And so this is the thing is like, I'm not accusing Nick of this. I'm just saying like this might be something he wants to think about from an expectation standpoint. Is he shouldn't expect, the fat funny guy, he doesn't work out and he's a fucking slob. The fucking fit guy, he's an asshole and he cheats on his girlfriend.
I feel like you're missing. Yeah. So I feel like
I really want to hear from Smith after you're done, Erudite. That's
sure.
I can yield for a bit.
Go ahead.
Why would when I say 10 checkboxes is a sublime friendship? Why would you assume that part of like if you're taking me at my word, wouldn't you assume that part of a sublime friendship would be being okay with people's flaws? Isn't that part of an excellent friendship?
Do you want to go through the 10 again so maybe I can understand you better?
The 10 is like mostly a number.
It's a nebulous like whatever.
It's a nebulous. It's not literally 10. He's saying what he's getting to an analogy, right? He's saying that if like men have friendships. He finds that men tend to check 1 to 2 boxes, sometimes 3 to 4 really, really well, whereas women tend to check like most of the boxes, and it's easy to find women who checked most of the boxes quite consistently, whereas to find a guy that checks maybe the 7 out of 10 boxes is like a 99.9% male friendship. That's like unheard of and truly rare. He's not saying it can never happen, but that's the analogy. I'm not trying to say there's literally only 10 boxes.
Okay, well, I think this is really interesting. I do want to hear what Smith and Tuna both think about this.
Okay, I have the best thing you could. I have the best thing you could. Okay, so to make this actually practical, I think one skill that you can learn, if you are a lonely man and you want to say you don't have much going for you. I mean, maybe you do, but you don't think you do. The one skill that you can have that will really help you like connect with people is to admit the things that you suck at and not pretend like you're good at them, and know what you're good at, and be able to humbly be like, I suck at all this shit. And in that way, then you can actually connect with people because you're not pushing all your bad shit on them. You'll be able to absorb their good shit.
Okay. Tuna, do you want to get in here with your opinion on the...
Yeah.
I
mean, I agree that admitting fault and not hiding it desperately does make you much more likable. I have tons of people I've met who I'm like, that's a fucking skinwalker. And it's because they're hiding every flaw about themselves. They bury it really, really deep down where you're not allowed to see it. It's a recipe to never connect with anybody. It's probably a majority of bad dating comes out of a person that is like not human. They are a product that they have carefully curated for themselves. I see both parts of this. One, it's the constant struggle between the idea that, oh, we're lonely because the connections that we have are insufficient. The people don't meet a certain standard. And then the other, which is like, we're lonely because our standards are too high. We need to lower our standards to something more realistic. It's just like, I don't know whether or not you can ever know. I think that it's probably case by case. Some people are probably a little too picky, and they break up with friends over stupid, petty shit. And some people, they're just doing just fine. Goldilocks relationships. You feel it out on your own. I don't think that.
So I hate to do this. I really think people are missing what I'm trying to communicate here, which is okay. It's probably my fault if it's being missed. This isn't about flaws. This is about depth in certain areas, right? So, for example, I'm sure you would all agree that there are certain friends that you have that just don't really have like the life experience like Connor. I'm sure you have friends who don't have kids. That's an area in friendship that they probably just can't meet you on. Some people without kids can, but it's really hard. Sorry, there's a fucking Alberta boys.
That's Connor going to the motorcycle club.
Yeah, really. Right. It can be really just like having single friends if you're married. Some single friends are fantastic and they really understand like marital relationships somehow. But a lot of single friends, there's just a depth there of like knowledge and wisdom that you just can't touch into. So it's not a flaw. Like none of these things are about flaws. It's about like, if we have these 10 boxes again, it's about the level of depth achieved on all of these 10 things, not about like if they're flawed or not. Like that's not the point. It's about like, if you're having fun, how deep can that go? That sort of stuff.
Connor, do you disagree?
So I'm going to try to expand on this idea. And Erudite, I think I understand you. I don't think that you think that I understand you, but I think I understand you. And I want to actually use an example because I was just thinking of like what I look for in peers that I'm close with, people that I am comfortable being intimate with. So so the ones that I came up with are competent. Are they good at their jobs? Are they good at their lives? Or do they try to be honest? Do they try not to lie? Frank, are they direct with their issues? Do they come to me directly with their issues? Funny, are they funny? Ambitious, do they have things that they want to do? Even if it's not monetary, do they have things that they want to achieve in life? Comfortable being uncomfortable. And I mean that like emotionally. Like, are they okay being in weird situations for prolonged periods of time? Are they tough? Are they physically tough? If I slap them in the face, are they going to start crying like a bitch or are they going to slap me back? That's important. Persistent. A lot of these virtues don't come around without being persistent. So if they immediately give up on every single goal that they set their minds to, I am not going to respect them as a person. Then self-confident. Do they have the confidence where they know their self-worth, et cetera, et cetera? Self-aware. Do they know their flaws? And then thoughtful and spiritual. So thoughtful, do they think deeply about the things that they care about in life? And spiritual, do they contemplate God and spirituality in the afterlife, even if they don't believe in an actual manifestation of God? This is my 10 out of 10 friend. These are the things that I'm looking for in a friend. I am telling you that I have 5, maybe 6 friends who check 7 of these boxes, and I love them. They could call me in the middle of the night and say, hey, Connor, somebody is fucking with me. I need you to meet me at the house with a shovel. We're going to murder someone and bury them in the Everglades. And I will say yes. I don't care. So these are the people that I love. They're my blood brothers, basically.
And what you're saying is you're okay with them missing out on the remaining 3 boxes or so.
But I want to make another point, because I think what Erudite is saying is that Nick has friends who only check 2 or 3, and checking 2 or 3 is infinitely more common. I still have those people in my friend group, but I kind of cobble them together in social settings to make almost a complete man. And then you're right, I'm not as intimate with those people, but I do still associate with those people, and I still get value out of them.
Well, and I think
you lift them up, right? You lift them up.
I try.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in Erudite's mouth. I think she's also trying to touch on the idea that these men who only check a couple of the boxes, for a lot of other men, it's not so much like how many of the boxes they check, it's how hard they hit on those things. So like they have the one friend who, has a whole bunch of issues or whatever, but he has a great sense of humor, and he's the most fucking hilarious person you've ever heard of in your entire life. And that's why he's always around. And the rest of the stuff they are willing to forgive, because that friendship may not have a whole lot of depth outside of that. I think that's kind of what she's touching on.
I want to give credit to Erudite right here. I literally just texted a friend that I haven't talked to in 5 or 7 years. Part of the reason why I haven't continued to associate with him is he is one of the most funny, charismatic, intelligent people that I've ever known. He is also not spiritual, not thoughtful, a total slut, a total hedonist, and he's going into his 40s and he's not taking care of his family. So while I love him like a brother for these 3 things, I will not spend that much time and energy on him because he fails those other boxes.
Can we go Smith and then Tuna?
Well, I don't know. Tuna's the one with his fucking finger up.
I thought you had your hand up a moment ago. Tuna, go ahead.
Yeah. Well. Okay, Smith. You wanna get into a little fucking tizzy with me right now? Let's go for it. No. I think that person in particular kind of makes me think about like the downsides, the negative consequences of how desperately we want to connect, how desperately we want to feel known and be known. Because you don't become 10 out of 10 funny, but also a scumbag on accident. I think to some extent, some people have a nature about them, but like we've all kind of met a person where they were like, this person figured out early what people like about them, and they never diversified their being. They are using that character element as a crutch. That's a thing that only really happens because we communicate this like unit value. I want a 10 out of 10 funny person in my life. The fat kid must be funny, which at some point means that you are going to become a caricature of a person. If your whole crew going to be looking like Rugrats, as opposed to like human people. The Power Rangers,
if you're fat and you're not funny, you're fucked.
If you're fat and you're not funny, you're fucked, because you need to be likable on something that is coherent with your identity.
If you're fat and you're not charismatic or funny, you are just fucked.
If you're sexy and you're too funny, you're a threat. Sorry, don't actually kind of like a person who's got the suite. We want them as a partner, but a lot of people don't want them as a friend. There's something about it that's uncanny. It's like you're not allowing. You're being selfish. It's the way people talk about bisexual people. It's like you're taking up too much of the dynamic right now. The fat guy gets to be the funny guy. You get to be the sexy guy, and I'll be over here. I'm the guy that every once in a while just says, "I love you guys, man." And then hits the joint.
That's a roll.
In the background. The classic triage.
Can we go?
Wait, I had something to say. Wait.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Seth, and then Erudite.
I think that like so much like at the end of everything you say, Connor, I like agree with the last fucking thing you say, but while you're saying it, I get this fucking sense of dread because like I feel like listing off like the things that you find important about a person. I don't know if you you probably don't do that to them, but like if you do it to them, it has that effect of you're the funny guy, you have to be funny, you know? So like that's when I said lifting people up, I feel like you have to make room for people to grow. And I mean, you're an adult. Of course you do this, but like, it's like, I expect my friends that suck in certain aspects that like make my life worse in certain ways. The ones that I let in my life that like have these negative things, I expect them to do better. I'm always looking for them to do better. I'm always there for them to help them do better. You know what I mean?
Some people will grow in. I'll shut up in literally 5 seconds. Some people grow into the expectations you set for them. So if they're constantly disappointing you, but you say, hey, bro, I really, I was hoping for better out of you, they can grow into that, and they do over time.
Did you want to respond?
So I still think we're missing each other. What you're talking about is things that you prefer and some values as well that you prefer. And so it's like your preferences for a friend. What I'm talking about for the checkboxes is traits that make people broadly good friends, right? And so no person on this planet has all things that make somebody a good friend. But there are going to be broad general things, not preferences, because frankness, for example, frankness isn't actually essential to broad all friendships working. Some friendships actually don't work if they're frank. That makes it work for you, but that's a preference. What I'm talking about is a broader thing, which is a depth that allows people to be good and skillful at friendships themselves, right? And so what I'm talking about is going to be like more broad categories, like emotional depth, moral virtue, right? Shared joy and hobbies, whatever those happen to be, supportiveness, philosophical harmony, whatever your philosophy happens to be, right? Direction, honesty, stuff like that. So it's more zoomed out. And when I'm talking about the checkboxes, I'm not talking about going around and having a checklist for whether or not your friends check them off, because I don't want anyone to put words in your mouth. That's obviously not what you do in your friendships, right? That's clear. I wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that is what I do. Yes, I do.
No.
We can argue about this in a second. Okay. Whether or not I walk into relationships with expectations about what my friends are going to be, and then I choose whether or not to associate with them based off of whether or not they meet those expectations.
That's not what anyone means when Smeth is saying a checklist. That's not what he's meaning, right? When people are hearing checklist, they're worried that you're saying like you're sitting down at the first dinner date and you're like, do you have all these things? What's probably happening more so is you've got a number of character values that you were looking for. And as people fail naturally, some of those character values, you make determinations about the closeness, and probably a large portion of this is organic and some of it is intentional and cultivated. That's my guess of what's actually happening for you.
Okay. So
but I don't think there's anything wrong with having like that subconscious, half-conscious list.
No, sure. Okay, I would agree with you. And I don't think Smith, the reason why Smith, I think, was disagreeing with you is because he was thinking you were sitting down at first date with your friend and listing off all the things that you want.
It's just emotionally like even because if we're talking about loneliness and we're trying to like be helpful, like maybe there's like lonely people and you hear someone saying about like a checklist, that's like a daunting thing. So you need to like add like,
This is the issue. Somebody said this in my chat. Sometimes we're lonely because we can't find friends to see us, but sometimes we're lonely because we're bad friends, right? And so when I'm talking about the checkbox, I'm talking about broad traits people can have that make them good at friendship broadly. Obviously, there's going to be niches of how those friendships play out, but I imagine there's a number of shared traits. And I think when we look at male friendships, this isn't my view. So there's a bunch of my chatters keep saying a woman gaze. This is explicitly Nick's view of male friendships. He's just had me thinking about it because I'm trying to figure out the question to male loneliness. I think what happens for a lot of men is that they're not socialized in all of the 10 areas. Not that there's literally 10, right? Whatever they happen to be. Whereas women often are, which is why women often excel at being really good friends. The issue is that women don't excel at other areas, right? Because they're not socialized in them as much, like business or like competitiveness or theory of violence. Like women have no conception of competitiveness very well. We have zero theory of violence, whereas men do. And because of the way that we socialize young men, they actually, in general, most men don't bring to the table themselves a capacity for depth and relationship. And so that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. I would like to... Please, go ahead, Connor, please.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I hope I'm understanding you. If not, then we just have like you're Canadian, I'm American. We just have some dialect issues where we can't actually fully speak the same language. So what I heard, or what I'm trying to poke at, is virtues that make people good friends. That's what I heard the most out of what you said, and where I might not be fully meeting your expectations for what we're talking about. What I would say is, so I just DM'd you Bo Burnham's "Lower Your Expectations a Lot" song. And it sings about the impossibility. This is about romantic relationships, but it talks about all of the contradictory expectations that we bring into friendships. Hold on, Kyla. Oh my God. I'm about to give you an aneurysm. This is the most pussyfoot fucking shit ever. Relax. God damn. Anyways, okay. So this is what I would say to Nick if Nick was complaining that all of his like male friends are fucking, they don't have all the good things for, a good friendship. Okay. And the reason why I'm saying that, yeah, sure, it's Mimi, yeah, it's rooted Nick, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason why is because I'm bad at friendships in a lot of capacity. And I'm better at friendships than most men. So, for instance, I have this guy that I would kill and die for. His name is Frankie. He's my fucking hero. We're the same age, and I worship this guy like he's fucking Superman. And that dude he won't talk to me for years unless I send him a text message. And if I send him a text message, we'll call each other. We'll catch up like we never stop talking. We'll be like, he'll tell me everything that's fucked up in his life. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm working this law enforcement thing. I saw this fucked up thing. This is my relationship with my current, spouse. This is what I'm thinking about doing with kids. It'll be like he's an open book to me because we do respect and love each other, but we literally don't talk for months or years at a time unless I put in this much effort. And the truth is that I wish that he reciprocated and put in a little bit of effort, because he is missing core components of what makes a human being a good friend, even if he is a good person. So I agree it's more common. I guess I'm just going to be I know this is a topic about loneliness. I think I'm just going to say like skill issue. Like one, the people who want these relationships, they need to be tolerant of people being fucking retarded and flawed and shitty and awful, and also have all the bad virtues of being a friend, even if they're a good person. And then also the people who are shitty at friendships, myself included, need to think about how we're good and bad friends and try to improve on the emotional skill set that makes us better friends.
True. So the only argument that I think Nick and I are trying to make is that when we look at the way that we socialize men and women, is that women seem to be just more skilled at friendships. And when I hear the thing of like lower your expectations a lot, I think some of that's probably true of like meeting, like I'm very big for meeting people where they're at. The issue is that like if we say we all agree with my hypothetical world that women are on average able to meet more of these good friendship capacities than men are, then what it means is that as a society we are failing men. Right. And so lowering our expectations for men doesn't seem like the answer. The answer is how do we equip men with the skills that we're equipping with women to make women really good at friendships and men less so.
Quick rebuttal. No, sorry. I can't lose this. Can I please? Okay. Okay. I think part of what's going on in our society is that we are trying to feminize men. And I think we need to, you said meet people where they're at. I think we need to meet men where they're at. So the communicative skills that we develop are not the good things that make women's relationships function. They need to be the good things that make men's relationships function. And I'm thinking very specifically of a meme where it's a bunch of women who are all hanging around. They're having a good time. Oh my God, babe, I love you so much. You're so great. Ba, 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 ba. And then like one of the girls walks away and they're like, she's such a stupid fucking slut, that dumb whore. And so as a result, they have all the competencies that make them good friends, but they're actually shitty people. Whereas with men, you're talking to somebody up front to their face and it's a bunch of dudes, their eyeballs are all fucking glazed over and red and shit. And they're like, oh, you're such an F-slur. You're such a retard. You're such an asshole. They're being mean and cruel to each other. But as soon as they walk away, they're like, oh yeah, John's a cool dude. I fucking love that guy. And so it has to work for men or there's no point.
Okay, I think both of those are equally as bad. Both of those are equally not perfect. They're both like, I think that the thing that women have the most that makes them better at having friends is that they're more permissive. they'll put up with more bullshit, and then that's why they go off on their own. I mean, this is a male gaze. I don't know. I see it as like they'll put up with a whole bunch of fucking bullshit, and they'll go off on their like with Sally, and they'll be like, "Did you hear what she fucking said about me? Like, I fucking hate her." And it's just men don't put up with that shit. But also men don't they don't open up it too. So I think that neither of them is really doing, neither of these ideals is succeeding.
I agree they're both bad, and they're probably both a result of the same thing. Tuna, am I losing you? What's going on here?
Sorry, I'm a child of divorce. Whenever mom and dad start fighting, I just think that I gotta go back to the nap until it's over. You know what I mean?
We're not fighting.
Nick is also just wondering if you would like him to come on and explain it, because like the biggest thing that I don't want people to be hearing, which I think there's a genuine risk, which is that like because I'm a woman explaining this, that people are like, you're just viewing this from like a woman's perspective, which I don't think you guys are necessarily doing, but possibly your audiences, which is I can't emphasize enough. I'm not trying to do that. At all. I'm trying to look at the dynamics that I see in male friendships and female friendships and going, there's some commonalities here that we can build. Yes, I want male friendships to look like male friendships. I think there's going to be many different elements like competitiveness and stuff like that. That's going to be more prevalent probably. But what I'm looking at is going, if men are killing themselves at a higher rate, they're blowing their heads off, they don't know how to talk about things, and they don't know how to like problem solve emotionality, it's a problem, and it's probably at the core of friendship. And so how do we address that? So like, just to be clear, and you guys don't have to, but Nick is offering to come on to explain.
I'd love to have him on. I'd love to be one of his shitty friends that only crosses 3 of the boxes.
Why don't you give him an opportunity to clarify? He's welcome to come in. He has the oh, there he is. Perfect, beautiful. Smeth, did you want to go in real quick, Smeth, or are we okay with?
No, I don't. Okay, I gotta fix the thing.
Plumb the depths of your soul, Nick. We're here for you.
Nick, what's up, man?
Now that's a bro zone.
Yo, what is up?
I'll only listen to you if you deadlift and pass out first.
Hell yeah.
I don't have any pants on, so there's no deadlifts today. Fuck, hold on, I gotta move.
All right, tell us why men are bad at friendship.
I mean, I think Kyla said it pretty well for the most part. I think that generally speaking, what we experience a lot of the time today as men is an issue of specificity. So I think you guys would probably agree with me when I say that in like the modern economy, I'm going to go like kind of wide and then bring it in narrow. In the modern economy, specialization is very much cherished. It's very valuable, right? Being an expert in one field is much more useful, especially monetarily, than being like a jack in 19, right? Unless you can somehow turn that itself into its own like specialization and make it like an expertise. And I think that over time, that hyper specification of our economy has generalized itself into how we kind of like interact with the world. Like, I think you guys would also agree that men are far more commodified than women. Like we are only good for what we are good for. There's not something inherent, again, compared to women, that is like valued or cherished just for being what it is. And I think that's manifested itself in men in general. Like men have a biological tendency even to be very extreme. Like we tend to autistically focus on one thing, pick that thing, pursue it undyingly, unendingly, and with no deviation from the path. Whereas women are, it seems, damn near by nature generalists. Like I've met almost no woman who single-mindedly pursues a single thing, and if I have, they're very odd.
Okay, so hold on. You just listed things that are like temperamentally correlated with male behavior that I think most people can agree with are like stereotypes of men, and I agree. One of my favorite quotes is like Robert Heinlein, who says specialism is for ants. It seems like particularly in industrial society, like you don't have like a Walmart bagger who also loves to read philosophy on the fucking weekends or some shit. Although that would have been me, that I was the grocery clerk who did that kind of shit.
Yep.
So I guess my question is, what is there a beef here that you think is solvable, or do you think that it's just temperamentally correlated and therefore not solvable? So for instance, I was just going to say, I don't think that this is necessarily solvable. If fucking Smith wants to talk to me about his autistic fascination with Mr. Girl in trains, I'm going to let him do that. And I'm going to support him in his fucking weird male autistic fascination with a single subject because I know it's his passion. And I have my passions as well. And I know that if I told him, like, stop focusing on these two things that make you incredibly happy, I would actually be like, not ruining his experience, but I might be diluting something that he's very passionate about. So I'll just wrap this up. Is this something that can be changed, or is this something that you just think can be expected?
I think it can be. Oh, good.
I would like to hear from Smith.
No, I want to hear from him, and then I'll go. Like, I wasn't ready. You keep
doing this.
I'm holding a piece of metal that I just hold in my fingers because I'm autistic, just like Connor said.
Okay, I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead, please.
Cool. So yeah, I just wanted to declare that as like the initial thesis. So I think here's the problem with modernity is I think men are temperamentally kind of in this direction, but in the past, being a jack of all trades was oftentimes and a master of none was oftentimes better than a master of one. That's how it worked. But it's not that way anymore. And that on top of the fact that men are temperamentally biased in that direction, I think creates like this negative feedback loop of men doubling down on specialization. So I think if we had environmental factors that weren't shoving us into a smaller box, I think that men would burgeon out and become more diverse again, essentially.
So I have a clarifying question really quickly for you, Nick. Do you think that specialization and concentration to specific areas means that we just don't see the rest of it? Or do you think that men suffer in the other areas? Like, do you think because of their specialization, they don't develop the rest of the areas quite the same ways that women do?
Yes.
Maybe I could
exactly what you just said there at the end is I think is exactly correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if each of the 10 check boxes, you can get points and it's out of 10 for each. Okay. So you can have a total of 100 points. The issue is that for men, like they might like say one of the traits is moral virtue. You'll often meet a lot of men that are like 10 out of 10. They're like obsessed about being morally virtuous. And that's like something they excel at. The issue is that on like 7 of the other metrics, they're at like 1 to 0. Right. Whereas like women are almost never 10 out of 10 on anything, but they're like a B+ across the board. I mean, you even see this in schooling. Somebody just had me think maybe and like TAs always see this. 4 out of 5 of your A+ students are men, but 4 out of 5 of your F students are men. And girls tend to be B+. But the issue with friendship is that there needs to be like, it's like relationship. This is why men struggle in relationship a lot of the time too. You don't actually have to be 10 out of 10 on all of these metrics, but you need to be at least 5 out of 10 on most of the metrics.
Okay,
to make as a prerequisite.
I just have a question for you guys. Do you guys think that men actually have that specification on like personality traits or
like
because like it seems like a skill thing to me.
Yeah. It's character. It's kind of like character. I think men are the types to hyperfixate and get really good at a couple of things, and they tend to excel at those things, and they tend to, as a result, not get as like broadly good.
I think Smith means like big 5. Like, are their personality traits more extreme as well? And I would say, yeah, probably.
I think I think statistically they are. Yeah.
I have a theory on that, but let me hear from Tuna and then Connor after.
Yeah. So specialization. I think I'm agreeing with you, Connor. I would say our culture is becoming more masculine because our culture is becoming more capitalistic, and there's something about that is relational. I think that masculinity is pretty heavily about liquidity. It's about trying to make it so that every part of your being is able to be moved. It's about adaptability, except for one thing that gets to be your tether point, and that's your identity. That's being recognized. When we were talking before about the fat kid has to be the funny one, because that's the only identity he's allowed to have. That's the only tether he's allowed to have. Everything else about him needs to be able to change. That's actually the main reason we don't like that he's fat, is because that's something about him that's really hard to change. He's not necessarily adaptable. There may be some environments that he won't do well in, like a sport or something.
Small ones.
Due to that.
Okay.
Women are becoming more and more specialized as time goes on. Everybody's becoming more specialized as time goes on. Probably the main reason that we feel like we're not understood, not perceived, not seen, the fact that we spend so much more time connected, yet we don't feel like we're connected at all, is because we are branding. We are essentially reducing ourselves down to an understandable, really easy to recognize the value of social commodity. The fat kids, you invite him to the parties where he's going to be funny. you don't invite him to the kickball league. The hot guy, you take him out as a wingman. You don't necessarily bring him to the debate if he's dumb or something. Like we're looking at these like tropes. People are branding themselves. Men started branding themselves earlier than women, but women are branding themselves super hardcore right now with the influencer economy. And they're so lonely. They're so lonely. It's crazy bad.
All right, let me hear from Connor.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you that we're experiencing like a social collapse where I think that the collapse of the church, I think the collapse of community, I think that the way we design cities, I think the proliferation of the internet where some of the people that you interact with on a weekly basis are thousands of miles away. I speak to you guys more than I speak to my friends who I live in the same city. I literally see my friends once every couple of months for beers at some kind of family event, and that's every 90 days where I see some of y'all weekly or every other week, so that I see y'all more than I see people who I live in the same city with. What I would say though is we also have a tremendous opportunity, and what I mean by that is that I don't think that we generalize men in order to improve their mental health. I think we accept the limitations of masculinity, but then we enhance it. And by that, I mean by creating online digital communities where people are able to connect on things that they care about. I think it's by encouraging men to focus on simple things. For instance, one of the things that I'm really passionate about that I wish that I could just have like a few $100,000 to back on is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Physiological, security, social, ego, and then finally self-actualization. I think that people, in order to become well-rounded human beings, so they're not specialized, they have to feel comfortable and competent in each sphere. And so as a result, you almost need to give them a manual for each sphere. Like when it comes to like physical stuff, I wish that they would just listen to Nick and start lifting weights and fucking running every now and then and taking care of their bodies and eating well. When it comes to security shit, I wish they came to me and they said, I don't feel secure in my own house. How do I make sure that I'm actually comfortable in my own well-being? So if somebody broke in, I know what to do. And also I know how to manipulate a firearm or use a knife in a proper way. I can teach you how to use the thing. No, in self-defense. Anyways, same height, self-defense. But anyways, and then like social, I would trust Erudite to coach young people on how to develop social skills that allows them to be social butterflies. And then finally, ego, I would probably go to some fucking autistic, fucking aggressive, ambitious dickhole like Destiny, and I would let him teach people how to create multi-million-dollar businesses out of thin air. So the point is, you would go to these people who are specialized, but then try to round out who you are as a person. And you would still be a specialized man. I love Warhammer 40K. I would still love Warhammer 40K after getting my manual for each zone, but I would also be more rounded out.
Okay, Tuna.
I got a couple of points of disagreement. Number one, nobody's gonna want to not be specialized because we have a social form that is so advantageous to like reducing yourself down to hyper specialization. People aren't going to Destiny trying to, I'm gonna learn. That stupid meme. I got this from Vosh. I got this from Destiny. I got this from AB. Nobody wants to be an everyman. People hate an everyman because an everyman is not real. It's a jack. Everyone's a jack. You're a fucking loser. Everyone wants to be a king in a single domain.
Yeah, if you're not the king, nobody's going to you for anything.
Yeah, and we're so lonely, and we
men's alternative.
Yeah, exactly. No,
this is alternative men. Women are totally okay with not being the queen of everything. In fact, the most toxic shit, I would agree with Tuna here, that's been happening to women is just convincing them that they need to become like men. So there's all these women being queen bosses. And I'm just like, literally stop. First of all, you're a C- manager because you're a fucking bitch. You're not a queen boss. You're just a toxic male with tits, you fucking asshole. And I wish what we actually need in our society is a way to look at it and go, feminine qualities are valuable because feminine qualities don't make you not a man. They make you more whole of a person. Just like women need to learn how to adopt masculine traits, but not become toxically masculine. This is what I think we need. And I agree that we have a social structure that to some degree reinforces it with capitalization and specialization. That's kind of true. That's what's happening. I'm just not convinced that we're stuck, I guess. I think it's just a byproduct of unintentionality of our society.
If Nick wants to go, I want to go after Nick.
Can we get Tuna, Nick, Connor?
I do have a response. I think the main reason that we're all so sad about it and feel so bad is because we share the same medium for social affirmation as companies do with marketing. We have unrealistic competition. We have unrealistic expectations for ourselves. Children, the same place that children are going to go ahead and get signals from one another that they are growing properly, that they are a likable, affable person, that domain is being shared by grown adults with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars behind them under their belt. That's going to drive you fucking insane. That's the big issue to me. So if we just made it, here's the big one, just change social media to make it so that marketing doesn't do the thing that TikTok does, where it's all in one continuum. I think that has been the most marked change in the way that people think of themselves. They've become much more like everybody wants to be a fucking influencer because the influencers share the same location as all socialization. It's become one thing. It's merging. It's blending.
It's the only way to not be like, it's not really, but like it's like it feels like that's how to not be lonely. It's like because you want to be valuable, you want to be the king, and you want when the way you consume like socialization is coming through this timeline, and the things that are the king are going to be the top XQC. You have to be like fucking XQC of like all fucking people. Like, what does that even fucking mean? It just means getting good at like posting and knowing how to shit like that.
Work the algorithm. Yeah. Okay, Nick and then Connor.
Yeah, so I think Tuna basically hit the head on everything that I just described. Like what I outlined is this specialization that I said in that we pride is in our markets, and Tuna said that we get through our marketing. Exactly. That is what's happened, and Tuna says that's how it is, and I say and that's dog shit. The phrase itself, right? A jack of all trades. Like the actual adage is a jack of all trades, but a master of none is oftentimes better than a master of one. Like that's what the phrase was. That's where it comes from. And I don't even think that that's changed. It's just easier to market yourself as a specialist. Generalists have lots of unique utility in society. Like even in a lot of cases, a CEO, especially let's say you're a tech CEO. A tech CEO in often cases is a programmer that has social skills and understands finance, right? That's a generalist definitionally, right? So it's like we've created a scenario where only the real mavericks are generalists, and the like top performing like automaton worker bees are these hyper specialized people that are at the top. They're the king of their discipline. But it's like, listen, it is definitionally lonely at the top. That's the point.
Even the successful generalists, you have to fit into a specific niche, like the CEO and shit. Like you can't just be a generalist and be like successful. You can't carve your own path even, because I don't know. Well, I don't know if I even necessarily agree with that. There's lots of entrepreneurs that don't stick to one niche of business. There's lots of tech entrepreneurs that do fitness. It's hard to brand a product. It's not hard to brand yourself. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
For different businesses.
Yeah, but so that's the thing.
Like that.
That's the issue, though. Is like we've taken this specificity, right? This idea of branding in one direction, and we've not only incorporated it into our products, we've incorporated it into our fucking beings. And there's no purpose for that. You will. I'm sorry, Tuna. I'm dying to let you know.
It's good. I'm replying to something you're saying, so it's cool. I mean, you're apologizing to me and not your own woman. She's got her hand up.
She talks too much, right? I'm just kidding. Fuck, you fucking derailed me.
We have to go, Nick. Unless you have more.
Last thing I was going to say really quick was, trying to create this individual niche branding for our personal identities is the real problem. Like, I think we tend to take our work home with us. We don't need to. That's the problem. We should stop doing that. You'll win more friends and make less enemies if you can interact with more people of varying brands. Okay. There you go.
Can we go Connor, Kyla, Tuna?
Yes. So y'all said something. What's wild is I think Nick and I are probably on the same page from like a solution oriented perspective, which is we just have to encourage men to be willing to generalize themselves and not necessarily make shitloads of money off of their specific like specialization or whatever the fuck. And we also have to kind of devalue money and efficiency as the end all be all, because the truth is that efficiency is just one metric of life. It's not the only metric of life. And the fact that we live in like I love capitalism. I think it does like a good job for a whole bunch of things. But the fact that like we have diluted human value to exclusively specializing in a field that makes you a healthy chunk of cash is actually disgusting to me. The human, like, if you look at what a human was born here, were you born here to be the best fucking widget maker on the planet so you could spend 60 hours a week widget making so you could die a completely uncontemplated life? Or do you just do 35 to 50 hours a week of widget making so you can be a good human being outside of your job? And your answer should be the second fucking one, unless widget making literally gives you an erection.
Can I say one thing?
So the point is, let me wrap this up just because I was patient for a while. So what I find funny is kind of like Smeth and Tuna were both like, hey, like everybody wants to be a king. Well, the truth is that when everybody's trying to be a king, nobody is a fucking jack. Nobody is a 10. Nobody is a 9. Nobody is an 8 in the fucking deck of cards. And the truth is, most people are 8s, 9s, and 10s. And as a result of constantly trying to be kings in the deck, you end up being a fucking 2. So how about instead of trying to be a fucking king, you just realize you're a jack and then you be a fucking jack. And that's the thing is like, if you're a jack, like I know we were talking, I'll wrap it up. But like we were talking about like jack of all trades, master of none or whatever. The truth is that if you're a competent jack, and I'm just going to keep using the cards as an analogy, and you're like an 8 or a 10 in a whole bunch of different avenues, you are infinitely more worth than a 2 that's trying to be a fucking king. And so, diversify who you are.
That's what the red pill is.
Okay, well, it used to be.
Okay,
okay. I think that is smart as fuck. Yeah.
Because of my chat,
Kyla.
Okay,
go ahead. Okay. Really briefly.
I don't know if my thing's brief. I don't know. Go ahead.
Why don't we go Kyla, Tuna?
I don't want to.
Let me cut off my white first, really quickly, because I just want. No, I just want to talk about the widget making really quick. Please, it's important. Okay, so I just want to say really quickly, the widget maker, right? That's like someone like Van Gogh that does everything in one direction for their whole entire life. And we write fucking books about them and they go down in history. But in their lifetime, they were miserable and worthless and ended up with no bitches. Sorry, there you go. That's it.
Kyla, please.
And everyone hated them. I think this is actually something I think a lot about from like a feminine perspective. Was it Smeth's turn? Sorry.
No, I was just laughing at what you said.
Okay, because I think this is somewhere where men have really been failed. And because in large part, I think a lot of men's advocacy groups have been like crushed before they could take off, in part because they like get like hijacked by misogyny at times, but also because like anything that's for boys club is inherently a threat to the current zeitgeist. But like Hollywood feminism is like probably the grossest thing in the world to me, because it's telling young women to become miserable, lonely, and specialists like men are, which have made men miserable, lonely, and kill themselves as soon as their job disappears, because the only way that men even think that they have value in this world is if they're attached to utility. And the issue is that like I just reject this notion. I don't even think it's inherently capitalistic. It's just kind of like a byproduct of our highly individualistic culture being smashed together with capitalism. Because some of like the newest companies right now are most successful that like tend to blend cooperativeness with like sorry, the fucking tuna chip backgrounds are so fucking distracting.
Listen, you're just jealous about the love that these men are sharing right now. Keep talking.
Bro.
I am. I think the biggest thing that's failed men at this point when I look at them is that nobody looks at men and says, developing in a whole number of areas is based. You don't always need to be the leader and the king and the top dog. What you need to be is like a rounded out person. That's what'll make you happy, and that's what'll make you hold. Fuck going down in history. The only people who need to go down in history are like hyper autistic men who like Elon Musk might go down in history. He's also got like 10 children who probably like barely love him because he never sees them and he never invests in them. And he's kind of like a weird, creepy dude, right? So it's like, yeah, he's a history maker, but also fuck him. Like that's not who you need to be. That's not the ideal.
Tuna, can we go with you?
Yeah. Okay. The first thing is that I actually disagree with this idea that what we're experiencing right now can be solved by just telling men that it'll make them happy. Because men don't really care about their happiness nearly as much inside of talking about these things. Men will disregard their happiness for the concept of legacy.
Yes.
9 out of 10 times. 9 out of 10 times. What people want is meaning. They want purpose. They want uniqueness, because uniqueness has been stolen from people by the very generalization. This system creates a hunger for itself. So knowing that and moving away, and if you're really trying to talk about like solutions or thoughts on that track, the only thing that you could do is an absolute collapse of the current understanding of male identity. That's not gonna happen. It's an unrealistic standard to move towards. So I kind of agree with Connor on one thing, where it's like you need to just figure out a way to retrofit. You can't have revolution all the time. You have to figure out a way to create the healthiest world for masculinity to exist inside of. But then I also have another thing that I feel a little suspect on, which is that everybody is making this massive sacrifice of individuality for nothing. And I think it's not going to matter much longer. I think that we have moved away from the phallic economy. We're moving towards a vulvic economy. Flexibility gets you a job way better. Way better. You need to bend over like a dog and have 15 specializations by the time you're 30, or you're not going to make it. So the man, the hyper specialist man, we are talking about like a millennial phenomena. Gen X is not going to deal with this. They are going to be probably experiencing at least 17 specializations by the time that they die. And they're going to have massive identity issues.
17, huh? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got like 7. I got like 7 responses. Smith, do you have anything before I go?
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about like loneliness, but we were talking about how the capitalistic like competitive thing has infiltrated our ability to like make friends and everything. Yet the whole conversation is framed around how men can have value so that they can be not lonely. So I think that like we're like everything everybody's saying is stupid, and we need to actually just like talk about like feelings and shit like that. Okay. I think like all of this is bullshit.
No, okay. I'm happy you said that. I'll make that my last thing to address. So no, like, and here's the thing, y'all are missing some of the things. So I think most people are going to be widget makers who work 35 to 45 hours a week. I think that's 95% of the population, and it's okay to accept that you're going to be a widget maker. I think that what you have to do is your boss is going to say, I want you to work 60 hours a week, making $9 an hour, and I want you to dedicate your fucking soul to this company, and I want you to kill yourself. And also, because we live in a fucked up economy where women are now making men, or out earning men, we do live in a gradually vulvic economy. Men are basically going to kill themselves for a legacy that doesn't exist. And so that is interesting. I remember one of the quotes from the Shoe on Head segment was that men will crawl through broken glass for a purpose. And so that's one of the things is if you're looking for purpose as a $9 an hour widget maker, you're not going to find it. And so as a result, what you need to do, which is very difficult, is you need to tell your boss, I'm putting in my 40 hours and I'm going to go do whatever the fuck I want after that. And if I need to like make sacrifices financially in order to make sure that I have like a rounded social life and I have like an opportunity to have a family and an opportunity to date and all that kind of stuff, you have to do that. And it's something that's counter to the American grind culture. And Tuna, I see your finger, but I'm not going to stop ranting. Give me another second. So this is where leftoids can absolutely fuck themselves. Is antinatalism is cringe. Antinatalism should die. The fact that there's so many young women out there who are saying like, I don't want kids. I just want to fucking get a Pomeranian and travel the world and suck dick. And then maybe I can settle down with my metrosexual boyfriend and we can go to fucking Rome until we're in our 50s and shit. Like, go fuck yourself. Like 90% of men are not going to want that shit. And so
you just described every antinatalist woman. That's crazy.
I know, right? And then, so finally, somebody was saying the collapse. I have 2 more points, and then I promise I'll wrap up. The collapse of the male identity. No, wrong. The reason why I do not assign my value as a human being to my ability to make widgets is because I have values outside of it. I relatively know how to hunt. I relatively know how to kill. I relatively know how to provide security to people around me. I relatively know how to have social relationships. I relatively know how to have ambitions and pursue ambitions. These are all things outside of my widget making job. And so if my widget making job collapses, I'll live out of a fucking cardboard box with my 2 kids and my wife, and we'll figure it the fuck out. And then finally, this kind of transitions smoothly into Smeth's point. How can men have value so they won't be lonely? I'm sorry, buddy, but I actually agree with this, okay? Maybe the world should be different. Maybe through virtue of birth, you should just have some inherent value. And you know who thinks that you have inherent value? Jesus Christ. But the world doesn't, okay? So what you have to do is you have to give your fucking balls a tug. You got to find something that you can do right. You have to round yourself out as a human being. You have to be of value to your partner and your children and your legacy and your economy. And then maybe people will take you seriously and you can develop good friendships and not be lonely.
Okay, so exactly what you just said is exactly why everybody that hears this and follows your advice is going to be lonely, because if you want to put it back and push it back, you want to push it back until after you get the skills. You got to push it back until after you attain value. Just keep trying to build value. Then people will love you eventually. One day, keep pushing it back. No, that's not how it's going to work. I think if men had the masculine identity that people need is just something from the 70s, like a fucking hippie man. That's what we need to go back to. Like that is the hippies were loved. And they knew how to love each other and have friends. And we don't.
I need to say this. No, Tuna. I need to say this in direct response to Smith immediately after he said that. The most important and fulfilling relationships I have had in my life have been learning from people who helped me develop these skills, being peers with people who helped me refine these skills, and teaching the next generation of people to have skills that make them people of value. So I was never lonely while I was developing myself as a person because I had mentors, peers, and mentees.
Okay. The mentors are not on your level. Like you're beneath them.
You're right. You learn.
Tuna.
Smash, do you have a? I'm telling you, we've got the bases are loaded, sir. Couple of things. First, I'm gonna go to Connor's point, and then I want to get back to the general, because I just remembered that I fucking missed my point. I forgot because I was too busy making the love triangle, which is you. I'm in it now. I forced myself in.
Beautiful.
I think that's base, Connor. I think that specifically the fact that you are not allowing yourself to be hyper specialized, and then more importantly, that you are not becoming infantilized by specialization, because that's the dependency that creates this like weird, like kind of like desperate to have something similar to communism affect that people have, where it's like, everybody needs to be dependent on one another. We need to be dependent. Oh, we're a social creature. It's always this like weird propagandic idea that the individual is not supposed to take responsibility for the collective. They need to gain it from someone else, which by the way, Smith, I'm gonna push back on you right now. That's the reason that unconditional love as an expectation to get from anybody it's an unproductive desire to pursue, to find a relationship that has it in. I love the idea. It's great when you're a child, but then eventually, once you get to that stage of development where you're trying to figure out what is it about me that is going to contribute, because you are going to die and new life is going to come into bear and you are responsible to pass that torch. It can't be innate. It can't be an inherent love. It's one of the main reasons I think that Connor is being cringe for being Christian right now, is because it's a little bit
not
too
a literalist.
He's a cultural Christian. He's a valor stealer.
Yeah,
really sorry.
Kyla hates that I claim any level of Christianity because I'm not a literalist.
No, I don't actually.
I know. I'm mostly meaming myself.
I wanted to get to that topic because I just did my little rant with Connor's thing. That's to get back to this. We don't actually have a specialist economy. Specialists are getting raked over the coals. They are being sent to the frickin' camps. The specialists are not useful because we have an extremely adaptive economy. That's the whole point of the fucking Volvic analogy. But it's like when you look at people, you're meant to look. You're meant to be understood in specialization. But all of these fucking anybody that has a successful YouTube channel, if it isn't that there's a team behind them, it's that they are extremely diverse in their skill set. They're interesting. They're good at editing. They're good at being responsible with time. They understand how to do market analysis and apply that. It's crazy how much of an everyman you have to be. You can't really get away with being a specialist unless you are an extension of somebody else who is using you as a part of their like external body. a company, like a CEO or a fucking patriarch. Go ahead.
Quick rebuttal.
Yeah.
Drywallers, painters, electricians, plumbers, software engineers, all of these fucking people have jobs. They're going to have jobs in the future. And some of these people are making between $150 and $250 an hour. I don't think the Volvic economy, I think that's a fantastic word. I agree with it. I think that the economy is shifting Volvic because we basically have a bunch of women in HR departments who are trying to make us do DEI and CRT fucking training. And we don't have the balls to tell them to shut the fuck up and just let us do our goddamn jobs, which would be infinitely more fucking based. We're total fucking pussies and cowards when it comes to telling the HR department to shut the fuck up. But at the same time, these specializations will remain and they will be lucrative and men will be able to find their niche.
And they can be loved.
If I could just tie us back,
Kyla,
we have to remember that the whole point of why we brought up the economy is to outline when we're talking about generalists for this conversation. The purpose of it is to talk about people who are good at being generalists interpersonally.
Yes.
Not in their career. I'm all for career diversification too, by the way. That's based. But what we're actually trying to talk about is an analogous of how both a person who in the workplace can be really valuable if they're skilled at multiple things. What we're also saying is in friendships, and in fact, I would argue in romantic relationships as well, what often makes people most successful at friends and partners is being interpersonal generalists. That they don't have 10 out of 10 on one trait and 0 out of 10 on the rest, but they have an average B on most things so that they're a bearable person and there isn't one element of them that is so unbearable that you can't live with them.
Okay.
So I feel, okay, actually two-prong point. First prong point, this is the short one. As far as the future market analysis goes, I think shit's all up in the air. Who knows how AI is going to change everything with proper implementation? Yeah, so fuck it, whatever. Fuck the speculation. But coming back to the brass tacks bit, I think everything that's being said from all sides can be phrased as a yes and instead of a no but. I think that there's this idea that maybe you guys have heard of that men and women are complementary opposites. Have you heard that terminology before?
Yes.
Everybody? Yeah. I don't generally agree with it, and I definitely don't agree with it wholesale. But in this regard, I think it may be kind of true. I think men need purpose as a baseline, and then all of this emotional stuff exists as a catalyst or a force multiplier on top. So if you've got a lot of purpose, and then you have a whole bunch of people around you that care about you, that you can indulge with and interpersonally whatever with that appreciate you, I think that multiplies the quality of your life. Whereas I think for women, it's the reverse. I think women at a baseline need this personal, emotional connection stuff. That's what they need to get by. And then if they I shouldn't say somehow, if they also happen to have a purpose that they're unified around, then that acts as a force multiplier for the quality of their life. So I think what everyone is saying is fundamentally true and works together synchronously.
The issue I think that we're highlighting is that we've done enough for stretching women's roles that women can do both. They're both the social glue and now they can have purpose with career, whatever the fuck they choose. But we haven't done the same stretching of roles for men. Where men are still pigeonholed into purpose, but not really taught hey, being just a good friend and social glue is valuable. Being a grandfather is meaningful.
I have a personal anecdote, I don't know, the second part of the thing, it was more personal, but this is something that, so the part of the reason I'm so passionate about this, because I was Sigma grind set for quite a while, and I was specializing, I was learning all kinds of specialized skills and everything, and then I realized I was so fucking miserable and lonely, and then I suddenly, I had an epiphany, and I was I gave myself permission to just go make friends and just be happy, and I realized I didn't need any of that shit to do it. I literally, I'm I can just be totally valueless to people, and because I of my social skills and stuff, I can still make friends and I can still make connections that are meaningful. So it's just, I feel you can do it. You don't have to fucking be a millionaire to have friends and shit.
Okay.
I don't think any of us think so, that you have to be a millionaire.
I know, I'm exaggerating with millionaire.
Right. Keeping with what Smith is talking about, we can move on to the second portion of this, which is a little bit more of your personal experience with loneliness. And I think it's definitely true what Nick is talking about. A lot of this has validity to it. I don't think we can definitely say that any of this is false. Any of the factors that we've kind of pointed to. But I do want to know how what we're saying maps onto your personal experience, because we do see a very palpable, very real increase in loneliness based on, like for example, the thing I sent you from the Surgeon General, and we also see that there is a noticeable. It's enough to say that there's something going on here, where males are far more lonely. The increase amongst males is like a factor of like 3 over the increase in females. So I do want to go around and Smith, if you want to start off talking about what you think the reasons were for that, or like what you think contributed to that. That's perfectly fine. But
and I talk to my therapist about this all the time. This is something I still feel, and I struggle with this. I feel like I'm totally worthless, and like no woman will ever love me, like unless I get because I stopped working on getting like a coding job and shit. So fuck you, tuna fish. Okay, I because I like I was trying to become like high value and all that shit, and I gave that up, and I have had success, but like I still like have this like deep seated feeling that I need to like have some I need to like have a house. For if I don't have a house and like a yard, then like a woman will never love me, and that's like it's just not the case. I think that's just like propaganda or something. I don't know why the fuck I have that in my head. Everybody's fucking telling us this constantly. I think it's just because people on fucking social media want to make it look like they're better than you. So and that's how they sell themselves. So yeah, it's all bullshit. You can actually just be happy.
You know,
women lie about what they want.
True.
That's true.
Just that, and we love to share when a woman exaggerates what she wants so much. Yep. We love to tell those stories. Oh, she needs 7 figures, 7 inches, 7 people in her life, pleasing her all day. She doesn't need that, because you know that she goes back to her scumbag ex with a 4-inch cock and no personality all the time. People just want familiarity, to feel loved, to feel seen. Like people's standards are way lower than they expect. I think that's the main reason, is that we love the female lie of standard. It's like a weird part of our culture.
I want to loop back around to Kyla. Something that you were talking about earlier in the panel was your own experience with loneliness and how you sort of inorganically forced a correction. Can you talk about that experience and ultimately how other people can learn from it, as far as like what they need to consciously put effort towards in order to fix these problems that they're having?
Yeah, so I was lonely because all of my friends were getting into relationships and I was still single, because I'm a Christian woman who's pretty high intellectual and very disagreeable. So I really don't fit into the Christian woman box very well. My dowry is low. And so all my friends were dating and I wasn't. So I was very lonely, just because my like social support network was just very unavailable, and we just didn't have a connection point. And they're all new in dating. So they're like, can my boyfriend come? And I'm like, sure. But then my like hangout with my friend is now like, I'm a third wheel walking my dog while she's like walking your boyfriend. I don't know. It just sucks, right? And that's no shitting on my friends. It was just like they were in a different walk of life than I was. And I was having a hard time when I would like hang out with like the single girls, especially like I was much more religious at this time. They're like secular girls who were just like, let's go fucking party. And I was like, you're all retards. I'm not interested in that either. And I was also really frustrated at my like perpetual singleness, because it was getting like rubbed in my face. So part of how I corrected that was I realized that my singleness was a result of having really, really, really hyper specific things that I needed in a relationship that I think were non-negotiable, which was similar religion, but also not a fundamentalist asshole male who's chauvinistic. Really hard to find just those 2 things that don't exist, religious and not chauvinistic. And he needed to be willing to support my career first, because I had like a very big purpose drive. And I just realized that probably doesn't exist. And if he does, he died, or he won't be attracted to me. And so part of how I solved my loneliness issue was I got very okay with accepting that my life might be single for the rest of my life. Because like my non-negotiables were pretty like ridiculous, but I also knew that I couldn't really make a relationship work without that, because I had tried that and it didn't work. And so then I started investing a ton of time into volunteering and meeting other people and trying to like make kind of social local connections as much as possible, and filling my time with volunteering and hanging out with women that like were older than me and younger than me, and like guys and girls. And I joined like a couple of clubs at my school. I became like part of this super nerd club called the Golden Key, if anyone's ever heard of it. I was like the VP and then the president of it. It's basically for like people with a high GPA. It's super cringe, but we get lots of money for being in it, so I liked it. And I just like threw myself into volunteerism. I got really intentional with my friendships because all my single friends were out of province, so I called them all the time. I went out of my way to drive and visit them, and I built a community around me that was supportive and spoke to my friends that were dating and said like this was a struggle I was having, and so we were more intentional that when I hung out with my dating friends, that it was just me and them. So I wasn't left out. So I solved it from very bottom up, boring answers, which was finding connection locally and building more friendships and making peace with the fact that I was going to be single. So that like wasn't like rubbing at the back of my head.
Could you
and then I met Nick.
it? Yeah. Could you simplify it so much as to say that you just chose not to be lonely anymore? I'm just wondering why
you chose to pursue purpose instead
accepted
of
it.
Relationship like a man.
Well,
very based. We're gonna have some parallel shit
the opposite of that. I chose to pursue network rather than just purpose. Because before I was pursuing purpose a lot more. Right. I joined volunteer clubs and a whole bunch of shit that didn't necessarily help my career or anything. It just gave me access to more people. I started volunteering at this Baptist Methodist church that like made women wear these like veils because one of my friends was there. Fucking hated the church, but I liked spending time with the people. More like
did that work?
Stuff. Yeah.
I started going to Orange Theory Fitness so I could meet MILFs.
Yeah, let's go.
Connor, did you want to talk about some of your parallels?
Yeah, I think we have some parallel experiences, although I guess I parallel maybe more with Nick. Big surprise there. So I would say that I haven't been alone a majority of my life. And well, actually, hold on. Now we're undigging some trauma. I moved every 3 years since I was 5. Every 3 years I was in a new place. And so I really got comfortable with the fact that relationships were transitional, that we're all going to die one day, that even people that you're very close with and who you love on a blood level, they could be with you one day and gone the next, and you just might not see them for the rest of your life. And I'm talking about like travel. Like I moved from Boston to Florida to Belgium to Texas, back to Florida. Then I joined the military. Then I went to Japan, Iraq, California, and then back to Florida, and I've been back in Florida since. And so what I would say is there's just something that'll snap in your lizard brain eventually, where when you lose like significant relationships over and over and over again because of a move, eventually you just snap and you're just like, well, fuck it. Like, am I going to feel sorry for myself for losing all these relationships? Or am I just going to, kind of move on and try to enjoy making new relationships? Because obviously there's going to be new and cool people. That's one of the things that I learned, is that there's new and cool people all over the fucking planet. They're all over the place. You'll find interesting, cool, weird, funky, fucked up people. But with the military in particular, I lost my young love. I lost my first love because we broke up after boot camp. And I broke up with her because I didn't want to get cheated on. And so I kind of preempted our relational decline by choosing to destroy something I loved. And that was probably one of the deepest and darkest moments of my life, was being in the beginning of my military career, knowing that my ex was moving on with somebody else, that I did love her, but it wasn't going to work out. And here's me on the other side of the world, surrounded by 1,000 guys without an attractive or compatible woman for 5,000 miles around me. How do I survive this? And the way that I survived it was purpose. Kind of like what Nick said. It's like, do you sacrifice the things that are important to you, including your own happiness, if you are pursuing something that is higher than yourself? Whether that's to serve a higher institution, whether that's becoming the man that you want to become, whether that's having experiences that you're going to cherish for the rest of your life. That was what I was willing to do. And Jack Donaghy, the character from 30 Rock, who's a corporate executive, he has a throw pillow that says, "Ambition is the willingness to kill the things you love and eat them to survive." And, I lived that. And it was crazy, and it was fucked up, and it was weird, and it was fun. When I got back, I was horribly horribly emotionally scarred, just mangled, dead, like interior. My soul was gone. I think I could only feel two emotions, and the two emotions were rage and numbness. Those were the two things that I could feel when I came home. And any positive emotion, any emotion at all, I would either rationalize it away, or I would, feel anger, or I would feel nothing. And that's the way that I was for probably about 2 or 3 years. And it took me, I'm an overthinker. It took me realizing the archetype, like the scarred warrior or whatever, the guy who's just cold and dead to the world, like Wolverine from the comic books or whatever. I realized that he was actually a pussy and a coward. And the reason why is because he allowed trauma to prevent him from being alive. And I realized that that's what was going on. I was allowing the trauma of my experiences to prevent me from having joy, from building relationships, from pursuing other things besides alcohol and sex. And by the way, like, alcohol and sex can be really pleasurable, but just because they're pleasurable doesn't mean that they make your life better. And so as a result, I was engaging in behaviors that were pleasurable, but made my life worse. And so as a result, I went back to the things that my parents had told me when I was a kid. Don't be the prodigal son. Don't waste your inheritance on booze and whores. Don't be an asshole and a piece of shit and a liar and a manipulator and all that kind of stuff. Be a truthful, upstanding person who cares about others, who gives other people things, even if you expect nothing in return. If you see a man who doesn't have a shirt, take the shirt off of your back and give it to him, like all that kind of shit. And what I realized is I consciously implemented the moral system of Christianity, even if I'm not a literal believer. And as a result, my life got better and my heart began to thaw. And so by forcing myself to do things that were wildly uncomfortable, that were not pleasurable, I became a better and more happier and successful and purposeful man. And so as a result, I would largely say I pulled myself out of that bullshit. So strong recommend doing things that are uncomfortable.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Well, I mean, I don't. So, like, why? What was it? The feeling that stopped you? Was it? Were you afraid to do those things, or was it just like lack of interest?
Lack of interest. I genuinely was not interested in life. I looked at the next 60 years of my life, and I saw a slow crawl into the grave where my body was going to get worse and worse. I was going to lose my family members to old age and death and disease. I was going to lose my friendships to their ambitions and their travel across the world. I looked at 60 years of the future, and I saw a slow, painful crawl into the grave. And I could not think of a worse way to spend my time than being a miserable cunt. And so I really did. Like, I wallowed in that feeling for probably years until I forced myself to start doing things that align with the purposes that I believe in.
Nick, I want to ask you specifically, because Kyla was talking about it quite a bit earlier. She said something about your perception of this is kind of circling the disparity that we see between male loneliness increasing versus female loneliness, which is increasing. Do you feel that you have like a more profound connection or level of intimacy or vulnerability, things that you value that you can get from your female friendships that you cannot from your male friendships?
That's
Gotta grab a baby.
That's a hard question to answer exactly. I guess what I'd say is maybe the way you phrased it is kind of in the sense of dichotomy. Like, fuck.
I feel like my hypothesis is that it is somewhat of a dichotomy. We talked about it a couple of times, but and we can point to any number of reasons why this dynamic might exist. But I think, like, primarily, men are not socialized to be able to offer those macro things that Kylo was talking about, or like the things that qualify someone as being like a good person or a good friend.
Okay. Sorry. I think I was slightly misunderstanding you. Yeah.
Okay.
I would just say that is the case. Yeah. There's and this is not obviously not it's a case by case. It's not every single case, but in the vast majority of cases, it seems like it's very easy to get this variable X. I don't know. I don't want to put a name on it exactly, but this woman emotion thing that women can give you as a friend super duper easily by default and with almost no trouble or even time to develop, and that just almost no men ever get. Sometimes they get like a ghost of it over a very long period of time, and it's just like, yeah, that dichotomy is very stark. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
And I guess my question is, if I think men are kind of under this pressure to have other male friendships. I think it's more acceptable socially to have a male best friend than it is a female best friend. You want to surround yourself with more men than women. Is it? Did you ever have points where you felt like you were a little bit lonely with your male friendships? I've had just some of what she was saying earlier. I kind of related to it. I'm not sure if it's quite the same as your experience, but I've had situations before where I'm sitting in a room full of my male friends, and I just kind of feel like I'm missing something. I have a great time with them. I enjoy hanging out with them. We laugh a lot. We talk about common interests, all this kind of thing. There's something missing. And there's something that, as I've gotten older, I felt very strongly that women are able to provide that thing for me more so than men are. And it then sometimes, it depends on my temperament, my mood, what I'm going through at the time, it can leave me feeling lonely in a room full of my male friends. Do you relate to that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like I've had to kind of like go to the internet to cast a wide enough net to find these, like, whatever you want to call these male friends. Let's just call them like friends of virtue, for lack of a better word. I've had to go to the internet to find these, to run into these like friends of virtue. In real life, I'd say I've had one single friend in my entire life that met kind of like this bare minimum standard of being like a decent functional person, and also had some of this like more feminine energy, emotional depth or whatever. I found like one in my entire life in person. And I think there is something transformative about like in-person relationships versus online relationships, only insofar as like what you can do together. So yeah, sure. I definitely very much resonate with that.
Smith, do you have any thoughts?
For me, the feminine energy really is like I've always had like really close like male friendships, but so I never like I know what it feels like to have that like that boundary or inability with other men, but I've always had like good male friendships. But the thing that makes it good to me is I don't really see it as feminine energy. I just see it as willingness to like not being afraid to be around emotions and shit. It's just like fear, like men are just like afraid of that or something.
Never mind.
No. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, maybe I've got some extraordinary experiences under my belt. I don't have this experience with men. I've seen men ground down to sand before my very face at all ages of my life. I do think that there is a level of connection that is required for it, that is a higher degree than you need to have that connection with women, it feels like. But like, men are willing to fucking put their soul out to one another so long as they feel like they can actually trust their soul with that other guy. And which gets me down to this other point, which I think that if you want to connect with people, you need to be ready to give them the entirety of you. From the start, at least a sign of the entirety of you. Both the emotion, the strength, the competency, and the things about you that like suck. You need to be really, really ready, or else they're not going to feel like they can be safe to give the entirety of their self back to you. You need to de-social media-ize your persona. That first meeting where people are like, okay, here's what's good about me. I'm demonstrating my value. I'm a high value man due to these 5 traits. Those are not the things that actually make people like you as a friend, as a partner, or anything. It's the depth and the contradiction and like the fact that you are going to die also. That's like probably the main reason we connect with other people, is we see in another person our mortality and our fragility. You need to be willing to share that pretty pronouncedly. Women are more willing to share it, maybe because once a month they experience a pretty like strong relationship to nature that makes it that you can't like hide it. Men hide their weakness like the fucking plague. We don't have permission to share the weakness in social settings. Maybe.
Okay, that was like 70%. That was like 70% base, 30% off.
Where's the part that's off, sir?
I think we talked about this earlier about being cooperative versus being competitive. Like I think you need to be able to show a signal that you're willing to share yourself with the other person. I do not think that you should share yourself completely within the first thing. Now, that being said, but that's because you're developing like rapport and trust and all that kind of stuff. Now, where I would say that you're right, maybe we could like build a bridge on this one, is the fact that you need to be willing to be cringe and fucking weird in ways that are authentic, and people will sort themselves out accordingly. So if you're like, hey, I'm into like these little tabletop plastic figurines, it's called Warhammer. It's basically Lord of the Rings in space, except for everybody's racist and they fire machine guns that are grenade bullets. Like half of the people in the room are going to be like, that's fucking weird. Why are you dedicating your life to that? You fucking psycho. I'm backing away from you slowly. Those are the people you don't need to talk to. And then half the people are going to be like, that's awesome. Tell me more. And those people are, you can start building that rapport. So you need to put out signals that people can develop proximity off of.
Are you guys good friends? Because I feel like anytime we have like panels like this, it feels like everyone like talks a lot of talk. Have you guys ever been on a panel about like kissing and flirting, and you can tell that like 4/4 of the panel has done neither of these things ever, and so then they like talk about how to flirt or kiss.
Panel about kissing and flirting? It
was about flirting specifically, and it was.
I don't flirt. I'm just tall.
Well, I'm glad you weren't on that panel. Well, actually, you could have been because apparently everyone there had never flirted. Anyways,
I'm a really good kisser, though, so.
Whenever I have like panels about interpersonality, like the biggest question to me is like, why the fuck do any of us get to talk about it? Like,
because we have the balls to do so.
I don't think that matters though, because you might have the balls to do so and be fucking wrong about everything. Like, I think that's such a like traditional masculine like retardation of being like, well, I've been brave, therefore it's worth hearing, and it's like, well, it's not. So I guess the question to me is like. The only people I actually want to listen to talk about like friendship building or like loneliness solution is like people who are good at being friends or who are good at solving loneliness. So I guess,
have a diploma in being friends. I am best buddy certified. Okay, F is for friends that do stuff together. I know the whole song.
I could see a very real possibility that a lot of people experience sort of the opposite of what is intended when they go through like self-growth and personal development arcs in their lives, which is that on the other side of it, you're looking at all your friends who have been there for you the whole time, and you're like, this person doesn't really communicate with me in the way that I think I'd like for them to. And I think that's why I say I personally feel like I am qualified to talk about what it is that makes a good friend and how to keep people by your side and the types of attributes you should put points into to be able to have those lasting and meaningful relationships with people rather than be bouncing from person to person. But it also has left me feeling there's times, especially in the past few years, there's times when I am lacking in a lot of my friendships, especially my male ones. That's kind of why I was asking Nate that question. So it's difficult.
How do you know though? Like I guess the question is, how do you know if you're a good friend or not? Because I think if loneliness is caused by two things, number one, not finding other people who are good at being friends, but number two being you're not good at being friends with people either. How do you, because all you can control at least is the second one. That's the main one that you have control over. So then how do you know if you suck at being a friend?
I think go ahead.
Well, I just want to answer the first question and then maybe address the second one. So the first question is, like I'm hitting a weird bar for relationships. I have half a dozen to a dozen men that I would kill for and die for. And I think that if I asked them, half a dozen men would probably kill and die for me. So that's actually like, it's a weird bar because not a lot of people take their friendships to those extremes, but I think I've exceeded those thresholds. And so as a result, I'm probably not the person you want to ask if you want to be like, I don't know, Stephen Covey, how to make friends and influence people or whatever. I am not the person to ask because I'm fucking abrasive and obtuse and fucking weird and autistic and shit. But yeah, if you want to go to hell with people and have people follow you into hell, yeah, I know what I'm talking about there. And then when it comes to like whether or not to be a good friend, I'll let somebody else talk because I could rant for another 5 minutes about that too.
So I think a lot of it comes back to this word that we keep using, which is willingness. I think willingness is probably maybe the single most important thing for a friend to have. I think your capability or your sophistication and all these things is way less important than having not just willing to do it out of obligation, but having a heart that's willing to be there for other people. I think the rest kind of builds around that pretty easily as long as you have that. And to what Smeth was saying before, I was like humming and hawing about the thing about men being afraid to talk about their emotions and go to that emotional place. And I was gonna say something because I was like, I don't love the word fear or whatever. And then fucking what I think it's willingness. Yeah, men like Tuna Chip said. We're willing to like bear ourselves and blah blah blah. And I think that's true too. But it's like pulling fucking.
You're all willing to kill for each other, but you're not willing to like. Sit down, share cookies and cry together or something.
Well, we're also willing to sit down in a circle of brothers, like cold sweating out of our fucking eyeballs, but never cry, and basically be like, I'm such a goddamn piece of filth, man. It's like there's so many parts of me that just aren't there, and it's like always this breaking point that brings it, right? And we do bear ourselves, which is valuable. It's better than nothing. But women don't need to be pushed to the edge before they'll say they need help. Women are like, they want to give that to their friends. They love their friends so deeply that they desire to do the things that matter with their friends, even when neither of you are going to enjoy it, because it's like, I don't know. I don't even want to say it's necessary. It's just like what friendship is or something like that. I don't know.
Well, it's important to also have some boundaries. Like, so you can hurt yourself by doing that, by being too willing. Like, so this happens to women a lot too. I think they're over willing. So they make themselves vulnerable in a way that they gets them hurt. They end up in a bad relationship, either friendship or romantic. So I think you have to kind of test the waters. Like, so I find myself in a lot of relationships where I find that I am willing to give a lot and I want to give a lot more, but I know that somebody like is not like capable of being receptive. And so when that happens to me, then I find myself like they're going to be willing to give to me like everything they've got, and they've got all this trauma and baggage and bullshit or whatever. And I'm willing to like to accept it, but I know that because of that stuff, if I give all that same stuff back, they're not going to be able to handle it as well. So
those are bad friends. Sorry, if you need to finish. But
it's like a friend mentor type relationship. Like,
yeah. And by the way, it's going to be wildly important for you to find somebody who is capable of dealing with your baggage. So yes. I want to make 2 points because I think I have something that I agree with Nick on where men could improve, but then I also want to make a point. There was this guy, his name's like Nick Kamalopoulos or some shit. He's like a MARSOC veteran. He has glorious hair. He works for Johnny Slicks or something like that. And he was talking about why he medically retired from the Special Forces community after 16 years, even though he was 4 years away from retirement. So he probably has some level of like medical disability, but he walked away from probably 50 grand to 75 grand a year just with 4 more years to go. And they were offering him bitch jobs. They were like, hey, you can sit at a fucking desk. You can go train people at the schoolhouse. We don't need you to be kicking doors. And he was like, no, fuck you. I'm out. And so what he talked about is it's like race car maintenance. Okay. When you go to a racetrack, whether it's like the fucking Indy 500 or if it's, McLaren or whatever that other one, Le Mans, they don't run the car until the car explodes. They bring it in every few laps, change the tires, change the oil, get new gas in there, all that kind of shit, in order to make sure that the car continues to run at an optimal condition. Whereas human beings, men particularly in the military, they run themselves into the fucking ground and they explode the fucking engine before they stop. And so and that's kind of what's expected out of a man is just run yourself into the fucking ground until you explode. And so I do think that Nick is hitting upon something real, that it would be a lot better if we took this analogy of car maintenance and then applied that to men, where it's like, bro, you don't need to wait 2 years of lonely, angry, futile fucking frustration and then explode into fucking tears in front of your friend drunk crying that your mom died and your wife left you and your dog died and you don't know what to do, but you've been holding it in for so fucking long. Which, by the way, that's a lot of the way like Gen X and fucking boomers handle their shit. And I think millennials a little bit less so. But then here's the second point. This is something that Shu said. This is something that somebody said in a tweet related to Shu. Part of the reason why that is the way it is because nobody gives a fuck, right? Nobody gives a fuck about the problems of men, not even necessarily me, unless we're peers. So unless I respect you, I don't give a fuck about your problems. You don't have inherent worth to me. Kind of like Smeth is saying, we should have some level of inherent worth. And so, sorry, final point, and then I'll shut up.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, maybe we should have some inherent worth, but final point, and then I'll shut up. The point being that like we can improve on this thing, but also I think there is something about the masculine drive where we complain, but we don't want to complain like that, right? We don't want to be a bitch. We don't want to be a victim. We don't want to be a pussy. We don't want to be a dead weight to our friends. We want to complain, but we don't want to make it somebody else's problem.
Yeah, I think you have to. So I don't think we should have inherent worth. But what I would say is, and this is contentious. You might not fucking agree with me, but I believe very strongly that we should be allowed to be entitled a little bit. So like entitled to be someone's problem. Like maybe they're not gonna let you be their problem. But someone like you needs to be someone's problem, so all the shit that we see online, this is something that really pisses me off, and I think it really hurts men, when men are being told that like you don't deserve love. You're like just like incels, like people are responding to incels. You don't deserve love. How'd you earn it? It's like, fuck you. No, fuck you. The incels need the opposite message. No, you need to feel more entitled to love because you think you don't deserve it, and that's why you're so alone.
The only people who deserve that message are my fucking teammates in League. They don't deserve love. Not one of them. I'm sorry.
There's Christian messaging here.
I'm gonna push back on a couple of things here, because I mainly think that some of these are like just like tender things that we wish were true, but like I don't think that it actually does create a best self. So I think that it is not genuine love to have unconditional love. The thing that's so based about conditional love is that it is a love that actually cares about you. It like says of you need to become your best self, and then it tries to hold you to the standard of it. That's why tough love is called tough love as opposed to abuse. It's because it's ultimately done with the intent and care for like creating the best person out of that.
But that has an unconditionality behind it because you're
It doesn't.
It doesn't. If you're my son and I say I unconditionally love you, I'm not saying anything meaningful other than I am doing my job linguistically in this moment to say the thing a mother should say. Because if you become a murderer, a rapist, a drug addict, if you disappoint me in every component of your life, I'm going to love you differently. Everyone is.
Or
and I'm going to love you into the. I'm gonna love you till you love me, dog. Like that's the point.
I think what we're struggling here is just with an issue of verbiage. Like I agree that nobody deserves anything unconditionally. That's just not the world that we live in. Like even if you want rights, you need to obey the social contract, right? But I think when we say unconditional love, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, Smith, I think when you say it even, it's something more like just because you fuck up the contract once, just because you void the contract once, just because you failed to meet your obligation once or twice or 10 times or 50 times, or you fail for 50 years, but you're trying. It's like, it's best if the people that are supposed to love you unconditionally still do, or something like that. Is that like...
Okay, so like I have an example. So I have a friend from like high school that is like addicted to like opiates and stuff, and like he's got like his skills and stuff, but he's become like obnoxious to be around and stuff, and but so like more boundaries kept getting put up, but he's always like so I'm not gonna like I'm not going to be as willing with him in every way, but he's actually starting to pull his life together, and I'm always there for him, and I'm there for him in a way where I'm like a catcher's mitt, like the catcher mitt is there. Like it exists. It has conditions. But I'm the catcher's mitt being there for him is the unconditional thing.
In acute situations where they're in a crisis, unconditional love to you then is you're willing to meet them there despite
drive
everything.
Across the country to California to go help him. And that's never happened, but I'd do it.
But the
it's conditional on crisis, though.
Yeah,
sure,
but it's conditional on crisis. But it is still kind of unconditional, right? Like I think most people when they have friends, and I think it's a good trait of people that if they decide that they love somebody, even if transactionally they have to cut off all communication. If the friend is like, hey, I'm so sorry I know it's been 6 years, but do you mind? I need a ride to a treatment center for my addiction. I would obviously hope that most people would have enough unconditional love that they would be willing to do that. That's how I'm viewing unconditional love.
Yeah,
I think that's the only way that humans can.
It's a baseline, just willingness to I've a commitment, a certain type of commitment where it's you're part of my life, and no matter how many boundaries and how much I have to distance myself, there's still something there, and it's always gonna be there.
I guess what I'm hearing in this whole conversation is lots of yes ands. I'm not actually hearing any disagreement. What I'm hearing is Tuna outlining the reality of transactional relationships in the day-to-day, which is with the opiate addicted friend. They're not probably allowed to stay at your house. You're probably barely communicating with them. I have a really strict rule with any of friends with addiction and stuff that I don't pick them up or take calls from them ever when they're drunk or high. I just don't do it. Very strong line, which means I go years without hearing from them because they know that they can't. But they also know that if they're at the hospital and they want to transfer to a treatment center, I'm happy to come and I'll drive them. No question. Right. And so I think this is a yes and where you're the unconditionalness is the fact I'm always willing to drive them to the treatment center. But the transactional piece is, but I'm not willing to take your calls when you're drunk. And I'm not willing to have you in my life. And I'm not allowing you to live near me or spend a lot of time with me while you're actively destroying your life and harming the people around you.
It's an unconditional transaction. You're willing to have the transaction unconditionally. Sure.
There's enough agreement here to bridge it here. And by the way, I'm not always going to side with Kyla. There will be people that I will cut out of my life if they do certain extreme acts or whatever. But I would like to think that in most scenarios, I will have this degree of latitude and forgiveness and attempts to help. And it will be based off of the favor asked. If you're asking me for $50 so you can go fucking inject that shit into your arm, the answer is going to be no. If you're asking me for $50 or a ride to a treatment center, or you're asking because you actually are already sober and you need some place to stay and you're trying to get your shit together and this $50 is the difference between you making it and not making it, then the answer is going to be yes. But it's always going to be with a aim towards a higher behavior. I'm not going to let somebody put themselves into hell further using my assistance or using my assistance.
But that's because you love them.
Yeah, but I think the issue is you also can't be unconditional with everyone. I definitely can think of people that I've never really been friends with, that I hate, that I think, and I think this might be a flaw of mine. I'm not sure, but I think there are certain people, because lying about me is one of my biggest, there's nothing that will make me despise you more than if you lie about me, to a harmful degree and stuff like that. There are definitely individuals that I can think of that even if they reach out for help, I don't know if I would be willing to give that to them. And that might be even a flaw. If they were hey, do you know any treatment centers around me that I could go to or something? I probably should be willing to at least send them resources. And probably I'm thinking of President Sunday. I'm imagine he messaged me and needed a therapist in the area. Would I be willing to send it to him? And I'm I mean, if the ask was just therapists, probably. I hope so. I hope I have enough character that would be the case.
I think you'd feel a responsibility to.
You would have to do it for the sick irony of the action.
I think in the case of just doing a simple task, I think would be fine. But I feel what we're really getting at is is there something somebody can do where it doesn't matter if there's hope of things getting better, you ice them out, period. You know what I mean? I think this, and it's do you do this out of spite or do you do this as a heuristic? If you're doing it as a heuristic because you're you're vetoing your hope because you don't, it's too too dangerous to get hurt or whatever. That's something different than it's like, nah, motherfucker, you passed the goddamn line. The contract is gone. Like, that's a different thing.
Yeah. No, I think intentional homicide, rape, and also animal cruelty. Those are like the things that I can't.
Those would be mine. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not kidding. Like animal cruelty. If you take a defenseless animal or an almost defenseless animal, and then you're cruel to it on purpose, then like it'll be tough for me to get through an interaction without fucking throat chopping you.
Agree with like rape and animal cruelty. I think murder, it would depend on the context.
Okay, fair. Yeah, that's also
homicide versus murder is an important
no context
distinction.
For rape or for animal cruelty ever. No, even some homicides where I'm like, that's probably wasn't okay. I still might be able to like be semi
involuntary manslaughter.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
No, not even like that. Not even that. Like those are the easiest types of murders, just homicide.
Legally,
I mean, in like somebody who like kill somebody and they really shouldn't have. When you look at the circumstances, they're like, that was bad. But it's not
like say your neighbor's a total piece of shit, or your friend's neighbor or whatever, and well, no, I'm going more. And he like is super brutal to his wife, and your friend has inalienable knowledge of this, and that she's never gonna get out of it. If he goes and does a first-degree premeditated murder on that dude, I'm like, yeah, I could still associate with you. That'd be fine.
Well, it's tough, right? If some of my best friends, like two of my best friends in BC. I think they could do more murder than just that.
Well, wait, what? What scenario would they have committed murder?
I don't know.
I
don't know. I can't think of it. But they're such good people that I'd be like, even if I don't know the context, there's got to be a reason for this to some degree. If they,
I think you really want to believe that, and that's really admirable. But I think if this actually came down to like, you were getting told about like this murder that took place or whatever in cold blood, a fucking old woman with a broken hip on the side of the, whatever,
yeah, like if my friend like stabbed to death an old woman or like a homeless person
or like a homeless person, yeah, it's like there's no way you'd be like.
The issue is I'm like, is it because of the murder itself, or is it because the murder breaks my conception of who they are? Because I just can't picture any of my friends murdering a homeless person in cold blood. I can't do it.
In a moment of weakness, focus too much.
Like, I was drunk,
Yeah. I just finished watching American Psycho. I was really in my Bateman era.
Racial slur while I was walking home.
I thought I could do kung fu.
Tuna the knife.
Hey, do you not have a stream knife?
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's two. I don't know. Whatever.
That's why you'll never make the cut, sir.
It's a comb. It's a comb.
Tuna, have you made up any ground with these folks on the unconditional love aspect of things, or do you still disagree?
No, I mean, I think that, yeah, maybe this language fixes it, which is maybe to say that my love is unconditional, but the texture of it certainly isn't. Maybe that's a way of describing it. And I think that's a good, comprehensive, synthetic sentence. I had a question for everybody. Is Ozempic the pill that's currently being like looked at to get rid of like hunger? What's the pill? There's some pill going around right now that's really popular for hunger.
No,
not Adderall, although based.
Casimia, tiphenteramine.
Okay, so Kyle has started speaking in tongues. Let's move on.
Pentecostal moment.
No, if there was a pill that got rid of the suffering and the feeling of loneliness in the same way that can get rid of hunger, would you think that it would be a good pill to exist?
Yeah.
No. I don't think we have
to exist and recommended maybe even by doctors. Let's put your nuance.
Well, right now we have an obesity epidemic where people are feeling hungry when they're not, right? Where like people like when we had our roommate live with us who lost like I think 100 pounds or whatever, he had just never heard pounds. That like in our world, you can just be hungry and it's okay. Like you don't actually have to eat just because you feel hunger, right? In fact, if your gut is really stretched out, you're going to feel hungry a lot until your stomach shrinks, and that's okay. But I don't believe that like when it comes to loneliness, we have a similar like obesity epidemic. Like I don't think people are just too slooped up and have just too many social connections. And so I think a pill that got rid of that would basically be like leaving an emaciated population with just a lack of sense of hunger. I think it'd be
the ephedra. It would be the ephedra instead of whatever the fucking example this is in the analogy. And yeah, if I could hit it, like it would be covering up a problem, and I think that's the main thing that is the issue. So, for instance, I take duloxetine, And the reason why I take duloxetine is because I have nerve pain in my spine. But I also have like some anxiety issues like related to my service and my trauma. And the truth is that like I get into situations that are I get into all sorts of wild, dangerous like situations or whatever, and I'm relatively chill and I can handle myself. And then I can have like a normal interaction and I feel like my body and my heart rate and my blood pressure feels like I'm in a fucking fist fight. And I know I'm not in a fist fight. I'm trying to calm my body down and it doesn't work. So the duloxetine actually like helps take the edge off so I can function better on a day-to-day basis. I think that's a correct prescription of the pill. But if you're taking that pill and you're actually in a dangerous situation, and then it makes you more likely to conduct yourself in dangerous situations, that's a problem. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is because if we're actually lonely and then we're taking a pill to be better being alone, you're throwing duct tape on the problem. You're not actually solving it.
Yeah, but this is something I say a lot. Everybody argues with me about this specific thing all the time.
The problem, I went over some of it in the prompt, is related to a correlation between feelings of loneliness and increased suicidality, depressive thoughts, things like that. Which that's why they constitute it as being a public health risk. But if there's nothing to be afraid of, if devoid of the feeling of being lonely, you're not suffering those adverse psychological effects, what are we worried about happening?
I think it would incentivize people not to pursue the joy of community and relationship. But I said green light to the pill. I say fuck it. If people want to limit their experience to the depth and breadth of colors of human emotion and experience, go ahead.
Do you really think people can consent to that? Like with like knowing Lee, like it just seems like
yep.
It's like consenting to being another species.
Well, so if we do that,
it's actually weirdly transhuman. Yeah,
I agree that it's transhuman, but a lot of shit we already do is kind of transhuman. Like, I think the reality is if we could make a pill that made people not hungry, let's say the pill that makes people not hungry makes it so that no one will ever be fat. It will never happen unless it's like overt and intentional. That would probably prevent a lot of people from exercising, and that would be bad. But I would still rather that we just got rid of the obesity epidemic than we gave people more incentives to exercise, even if that meant I make less money as a personal trainer. I'm fine with it.
Oh, okay, I was trying to figure out where the bad was coming from, and I was like, "What's his angle? What's he? Why would he say it's
got
worse?
A financial incentive?"
Yes, of course, the selfish gene.
But there's a nuance here where if society is going to continue to exist as it currently exists, and we can alleviate the suffering of individuals, then we should, and it should be like an option for these people. However, like what Kyle and I mentioned this in our opening statements like an hour ago, I think that urban design, 2 hours, whenever we started, urban design is absolutely a factor in this that we could change going forward. Like, I think Trump is kind of a fucking lunatic, which is like with his future cities or whatever, because I think they would literally be designed by fucking oil companies to make like perfect workers, and they would have like they would have these pill dispensers, like hand sanitizer dispensers, like on the way to work. They would have your fat pill and your anti-loneliness pill, so you could work fucking 18 hours a day or whatever. Like that's the city that they would develop. But I think that you could actually build like community-based, designed housing, work, recreation, third spaces, all that kind of stuff, and basically create like a really idealized human life through urban design. And then if somebody is like, I work 8 hours a day, I work 35 to 40 hours a week, I do have friends, I do have family, I still just feel weirdly alone, I've tried the spiritual thing, it doesn't work out for me, maybe I'll try this pill. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because this is exactly.
I want the pill because I'm fat phobic. Okay.
If you hand out the pills for any of these types of problems before you solve the structural issues, like if we're having like a society that's built wrong, that's making people fat or whatever, then like if you just hand out the pills, then you're putting the responsibility on the backs of all the victims of just some other problem, and you could just fix that.
So as long as the pill was like a controlled substance, Schedule 1 drug, you guys are fine with it, but you wouldn't want it over the counter. Is that what you're saying, basically?
Not over the counter, prescription only.
Also, there's a 0%
I'll take it over the counter, baby. I don't even care.
There's a 0% chance that I believe that any of these pills' side effects would be worth it for the most part. My understanding of Ozempic is that it's terrible for you right now. Like, the side effects are fucking crazy.
The anti-fat pill has a bunch of side effects?
Corey Campbell,
Yeah,
shout
heard
out to him for the raid. He said it was
Yeah.
Ozempic, and am I pronouncing this right? Is it semaglutide? Those are
You're
the
speaking
ones
tongues.
that we're referring to.
Yeah, I was correct. That's all that I care about.
I think the issue though with this is that the side effect of most drugs is always going to be better than obesity.
I think the issue is like when you stop taking the medication at all, it can be like really harsh on your body. That's what Clean Chemist is saying.
So is obesity.
Then just stay on it until you die. Fine.
I think you. Okay, never mind.
I want to.
Like I said, I'm fat phobic. I don't care. Just take the pill. Right?
Yeah.
I want to point out a couple of things here, which is that people that were into it and people that were against it, no matter what, the thing that we all have in common is that we want to reinforce the thing about the human that makes it reinforce the type of society that we like. So if you like community, if you think that community is good on some core level, then you don't want people to medicate away loneliness because you think that loneliness is actually socially, structurally useful. It makes people live the way that you think people should live. Secondarily, the people that are working that are constructing this factory that are giving away the pill, they want efficiency. They want you to find yourself in productivity, in efficiency, in if you're lonely, every hour that you wish you were spending with your kids, you should be wishing that you were spending on the line, lifting your finger up and down on the button.
No, so you're fucking cooking.
I don't trust anybody in their opinion on the pill, and I don't trust anybody in their opinion on what desires are legitimate and illegitimate, because it sounds like we just want to use one another to create the world that is best for us, whether or not we're a physical trainer that wants everybody to be desperately insecure about their weight, or if we are a factory owner that wants to make it so that people are exhaustively concerned with loneliness such that they're willing to take a drug for it rather than beg the government to allow you to have a social life by, like living standards increasing or something. Like it's all politics all the way down. I don't know if there's a correct solution.
There is. And the thing is, like, I think ultimately the reason why I want to be in a liberal Republican society, like a republic that has a lot of rules that set the foundations, and then a liberal society that tolerates like multiple expressions in pursuit of happiness and all that kind of stuff, is because I don't think that one size is going to fit all. But I do think that we can have orienting principles like eudemonia, which is a term that we've used several times tonight, which is just like the general well-being of good spirit. And I happen to think that that would come through helping people climb Maslow's hierarchy of needs in an intentional way. But that also means that there's 10,000 journeys to the top. Self-actualization does not look the same for everyone. So for instance, like I think it involves lifting weights, shooting guns, being a family man, working a job that you kind of like, or somehow combining your passion into your job. I think that would give me eudemonia. But if for Smeth, it's going to be a 60-hour week. Well, let's just say hypothetically, a different version of Smeth wanted to be Van Gogh, work 60 hours a week, painting weird fucking paintings, and then chopping his ear off in order to throw it to some broad, and then like in like everlasting legacy as one of the world's greatest artists or whatever. I think he should be free to pursue that, even if I think it's bad.
I agree with all that. I just also think that everyone in the theoretical Smeth Go life should call him a retard and try to convince him otherwise.
Hey, I already said I want to shoot guns.
He wants to shoot guns.
Yeah, I mean that now we're just getting into like,
of a gallery.
I want to shoot my ear off.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing too. Is like that's kind of another can of worms. Urban development, all that kind of stuff is kind of another can of worms. We didn't talk about COVID and isolation. We didn't really talk about technology all that much.
Thank God we didn't talk about COVID. Holy fuck.
I didn't really want to, so I'm glad we didn't. Point being, obviously, like kind of like Tuna was saying, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of approach this. And I did find myself sort of thinking of different avenues, as we got closer and closer. I do think we are almost doubled up on our time. Yeah, we're almost at 3 hours. I'm happy if you guys want to keep going. If not, I feel like that's sort of.
I got to take care of the baby, unfortunately.
Yeah, give us an excuse. Just tell us to leave so we can have an excuse to leave. You know what I mean?
I need to go eat. How about that? So
I'm gonna go play League and tell my teammates that they're unworthy of love.
Unworthy.
So okay, well, I super appreciate it. This is very much like the conversation that I kind of wanted to have, and we touched on a little bit of vulnerable components of it that I was hoping to get to. So I appreciate everyone's willingness to go to those areas. Kyla, did you want to say something?
No, sorry, I'm fixing my camera.
No, you're okay. So yeah, really briefly, if you guys want to go around and plug your channel one more time before we head out. Nick, do you still stream? I don't even know. Do you still do workout streams?
Not right now. I'm doing some real life stuff before I try to do the content stuff again.
Jealous. Okay, Connor.
Sorry, my child is talking to me and staring at me beautifully, and so do that, okay? I'm telling you, I wanted. There was a part of me who wanted to be a nihilist hedonist until I was 35. I think I'm turning 36 this year, so I would have spent another decade of degeneracy. Instead, I ignored my degenerate impulses. I tried to become a better human being. I tried to tell the truth as much as possible. I worked some really cool jobs. I got married and I had some kids. So even if the boring life is not appealing to you, try some of the things your parents told you. Try some of the things that Sunday school told you to do. And if you actually find yourself more content, build that into a habit that slowly builds over time. And maybe Christian theologians aren't wrong about everything. If you want to find me, my name's Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. Counterpoints 40K is my most popular content. It's breakdowns of Warhammer animations. Warhammer is a beautiful, violent, grim, dark, fucked up universe that actually talks a lot about politics and psychology and tactics and all that kind of stuff. So if you're into violence, check out my main channel. It's doing quite well. If you want to check out debates and shit like this, then check out Counterpoint Coliseum, soon to be Counterfire. We're launching a show with Miss Brianna Wu on a weekly basis, probably in the next month or so. And then finally, Counterpoints is just my high quality essay channel. I don't get around to that as much as I want to, but it is there. So check them out.
That's awesome. Thank you for being flexible too, Connor. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Erudite.
Yeah. I think men are lonely because we don't teach them how to be good at friendships, and I think we're failing men, and I think we're increasingly failing society in regards to community and connection. I think people are increasingly bad at being friends and being community members to each other, and I think it's leading us to bad paths, and I hope that we correct it soon. But I think we will correct it. I just hope it's sooner than later. You can find me anywhere at Not So Erudite if you like my takes on stuff.
Thank you, Smeth.
All right, you can find me everywhere, Real Smeth on YouTube specifically, mainly, but you find me wherever. I think the most important nugget that I have is that if you think that you don't deserve friends and you don't think you're good enough for them, and you're still holding yourself back, just pretend that you're good enough for a while. Just pretend for a couple of weeks.
See how it feels. Okay. Tuna.
What's up? I'm Tuna. Chip, motherfuckers. Go ahead and check my shit out. I'm gonna be starting up streaming to some extent again. I took a little hiatus because I'm converting so many things in real life, and I got into a really nice new partnership, which has been really fulfilling as well. I recommend trying that shit out too, whether or not that means dating or if it means friends or even connecting with somebody that is at your workplace. Other than that, yeah, check my shit out here. I'm on fucking Twitch. I'm on YouTube. I'm on all that fucking shit. Also, I wanted to say really quick, if you want a good way to be loved, you gotta become a hip-hop, the hippin' hoppitest, the most hippin', the most hoppin', the most cool, the most beat, lyrical. You have to become a lyrical genius that knows how to hit on the beat and go all lyrical with the son of a bitch, and you gotta be spitting rhymes like the baby that loves you, and you gotta be kissing on the baby like a president straight on the face, and you gotta love like you love you.
Perfect outro. I didn't kick him, I promise. And guys, my name is Kilo. I know, I wish. My name's Kilo. You can find me at Kilo the Giant on Twitch and Twitter. And I plan on what I'm interested in is doing sort of smaller and more fluid and more meaningful, thought out panels on a more occasional basis than some of what we tend to see in the space. And so I'm planning on doing another one in a couple weeks. So I'll see you guys there. And all of you, thank you so much for watching. Nick, thank you for hopping on halfway through. It was very insightful having you here. I super appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to abruptly end my stream. I appreciate you guys being here. This was awesome. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Can I ask everybody a question? Everybody that's here before we. Okay, so I'm really curious about how to solve this problem. So like on a lot of issues with masculinity, Kyla is literally just parroting what we've talked about and what I've told her of my experience of masculinity, and it feels like the depiction of it just never quite hits. It's never quite received when she goes over it. But then when I come, there's a little bit of a click of people like, oh, okay. Like, what do you guys think is the difference in the communication? Like, what's the?
I don't really listen to women.
Sexist. No. Okay. No. Hold up. So I think she was trying to communicate with me the most. I think what was missing in our conversation was probably relatively. It was minutia, I think. So I was looking for traits that make human beings good human beings that I would seek in a friend because I would respect them and want to be around them. Whereas if I understand the disconnect was Erudite and yourself, we're saying there are things that men do specifically, regardless of their quality as a human being, that makes them on average worse friends than women. Maybe they're not communicative, maybe they're not intimate, maybe they're callous, maybe they're sarcastic in a way that's not appropriate, and this is something that's socialized. So if I understand that to be the disconnect, we probably had to loop on that 2 or 3 times, but we ultimately did come to consensus before you jumped on. I just think that what she was describing is something that I am also bad at. I am callous. I am sarcastic. I am not always the easiest to communicate with. So as a result, she was describing me, and I literally didn't see it because she was describing me, and the things that she was describing make me blind to the very thing we're talking about. Also, my solutions are antithetical to probably her perspective, which is improve on these things. Whereas I say, just make men self-aware that these are their communication styles and then try to find out ways that they can have emotionally rewarding relationships without improving on their social skills.
Yeah, that was super thoughtful of a response. Nick, I will say, like, I think if this comes up and you see the same pattern other places, I was making a joke, but I do unironically think people have there's probably less of a willingness to listen to what a woman has to say about male friendships and the depth of them and stuff like that. Naturally, for some people,
there were some jokes that might not have been jokes in chat about it.
Yeah.
There's definitely lots of those.
I'm not going to listen to Kyla. She's a woman. Yeah, she's like, you're the woman.
Nick came on, described what I was saying, and everyone's like, yeah, that seems kind of true. It's just like,
you're damn. Because the thing I thought was, like,
I think I was with you the whole time.
Go ahead. I thought I was kind of with you, but like it's like when you said this is all what Nick says, and it's like, well, you don't actually think this, so you're just saying what he thought, and then it's like if you don't say that, then they're like, oh, well, you're just a woman, so it's like, I don't know. It's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
You went for wardrobe change.
I would say one major difference is that seemed to pull a lot of people along was that Nick drew the analogy of the economy. And once he kind of built that narrative, everyone was like, oh, and they could kind of see it. And then I could afterwards tie it back to being like, so when we say this about men in the economy, I mean this men interpersonally. And
yes,
everyone's
like, unfortunately, we talked about the economy for a very long time after that. So.
I actually think that would be a way, though, to bridge the communicative gap where you're talking about specialization versus generalization, where you're basically saying there's generalized skills that men could improve upon that would improve their relationships, regardless of their all of the virtuous characters that you associate with people you want to associate with. And that's by the way, I think we repeated back to each other the same 3 sentences because that is kind of a narrow distinction. And it's something that a lot of people don't think about. Yeah, it's like the things that I look for in somebody I want to be friends with versus the traits that actually make them a good friend. Yeah, that is actually
I know it was a very, very subtle distinction, which is why I was like, oh, you're like 95% of the way, but you're missing the 5%, and it's a wholly different conversation with the 5%.
No, it's literally, and I'm sorry if I'm ranting, but it actually is a completely different conversation, because you could have somebody who's a shitbag, who's an excellent communicator in all the ways that make them a good friend. And as weirdly, because I actually have people like this, weirdly, as a result, they get a lot of latitude for their shitty behavior because they're good communicators who are open and empathetic and intelligent and all that kind of stuff. And then you have people who are totally virtuous, awesome fucking people, but they're dog shit communicators. They're not attentive. They don't listen a lot. And as a result, they get...
Don't talk about Destiny like that, okay?
But they either they get neglected or they neglect you. And as a result, those friendships suffer. And that is an important distinction, especially when you're talking about men.
For sure.
Yeah.
Peach hippie.
Yeah, I'm gonna dip because my boy's getting upset. I gotta go, but parasocial love to you and yours. And Nick and Kyla, I'm gonna consult with you soon so I can brainwash my Discord into loving me.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
I'm sending you guys to Nina. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace and love.
All right. I am painfully working on some fucking shorts, YouTube shorts, but like it really sucks just like scouring my own videos to find like good moments, because I'm biased. I don't even know, like I can't even tell what's a good moment. Maybe if you have any suggestions, let me know. Have a good night, Smeth heads. Because it's a long stream, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, so I have to wait a bit before I turn the stream off. So I'm just going to stare at the camera for a good long moment, and then eventually click the button that my finger's hovering over to end the stream.